What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Eric, and we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I know that everyone really likes transparency, so I want to just go ahead and start with the Subscriber Sunday or Subscriber Monday has always been one of the lowest view catchers out of all of the videos that we produce. It always seems that only the core of the community actually wants to participate in that event. And asking around, I always get the same answer. To do whatever is best for growing the community. And out of that, I think that we need to change the content somewhat. I'm not for sure if this is the proper way to go about it, but we're going to try it anyway. So we're bringing back coffee time in replacement of subscriber day. And in doing so, we're going to actually be pulling up these subscriber decks. We're going to be talking about them. Discord is available. If you guys want to hop in Discord, you can. I want to go ahead and say that these videos may not be suitable for work. They may not even be suitable for monetization. But I do want to change the content. I want to make it to where more people can get more value out of our deck building. And I think this might be the right way to go about it. So I am going to try to carry on and see if we can make this work. But if you guys want to hop over in the Discord, you can. We'll be doing this live. If you have a deck over on the Sideboard MTG subreddit, you can you can hop in Discord as we pull up your deck. I'll pull you down into the private chat, and you and I will talk about it directly on stream. And that's why I'm saying this may not be suitable for work. I have no control over what people in Discord may be saying, but I've read the rules and regulations of YouTube, and I shouldn't be in any danger. And if someone jumps in and decides they're going to be a troll, then the only thing I need to do to protect the community is just to ban them on the spot. So I do want to let you know that if you want to be a troll, then we'll just ban you and move on. But if you have a deck, or if you have serious questions about a deck, all you have to do is post that deck. We'll pull it up. We'll give it a talk. If you need mana bases fixed, things like that, we can work on your mana base. We can work on a lot of different things. And we're going to start out here with Tier 1 Jenks deck. And then we're going to be moving on to D-Tech's deck. And then we've got a couple more decks after that. We're going to be looking at Madness's Bag of Holding deck, because it was the top votes for the last week. You guys will see that right here. So we're gonna start with that. So let me pull up Tier 1 Jank's list. I assume Jank is here. So let's see what's going on. Let's check out his list. He's got a Jeskai Forge deck. So let's jump over to Discord and see if we can get something out of Jank. Tier 1 Jank, are you here, good sir? Okay, so D-Tech's Gary Miller. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Now I have a name to go with it.
Can you hear me?
I can. What's up, Tier 1 Jank? Albatross says, I think we slash you are doing a good job of avoiding trolls. Sure. If we do hit trolls, we'll just move on, right? Trolls are everywhere. If you're going to be on the internet, you got to learn to deal with trolls. So
Okay, so it looks like you're coming through on YouTube, but not actually in Discord. You have yourself muted, so I'll only hear you on a delay. You might want to unmute yourself on Discord.
how about that? Discord's push to talk, Jank. So how's that?
That is better. I just didn't want to create a reverb, so I was going to mute the YouTube.
Sounds great. I will. Yeah, I guess I could do it this way.
Unless, I mean, if I'm not creating a problem now, I'll just leave the YouTube on.
Can you hear me now, Jank, without push to talk? So everybody doesn't hear the little beeps. All right, so
can hear you.
all right, we've got your Jeskai Forge deck pulled up here, and this is a Steel Overseer deck. All right, Thraxos, Dovin, Saheeli, Teferi, Karn, Karn the Great Creator, Ugin, Deafening Clarion's nice. Okay,
Yeah, I know you saw a previous version of the deck I put together for the early access, and you weren't really happy with it. I can say I was really happy with it either. I know Dev put out a Forge deck recently too, and I made a few changes kind of based on what I saw there. I think Jeskai is better for it, but I didn't really go with everything that he went with.
that's fair. Mystic Forge. So you're basically just wanting to get value, like fanatical firebrand, or sorry, experimental frenzy value out of the forge. So we need as many colorless. Oh, yeah, okay, a colorless non-land card.
Yeah, in some ways it's better than Frenzy because you can exile the top card, or we can untap it with a key and exile another card.
So you can just kind of keep going through the deck.
Yes.
Okay, so that adds a lot of value to your manifold key, as long as we are getting value off of the Mystic Forge.
Yes, and the key also helps to get big constructs through as well as Traxos,
Okay, making
making it unblockable.
or untapping Thraxos in the first place.
We
Okay,
can do that. We usually don't have a problem untapping him with all the historic spells, but we can untap it with a key if necessary.
fair. It's more synergy, so that gives me more value for actually having key in the deck. Um, okay. Fountain of Renewal. How valuable is Fountain of Renewal?
Fountain of Renewal can, maybe buy you the extra turn or two that you need with a few life points. It's more card draw if we need to burn through a land that we can't get through with Mystic Forge. And it's another artifact that we can play off the top for free sometimes if we have Ugin out or for just one.
Okay. So which would you say is the most valuable portion of Fountain of Renewal? Because I find the card itself to normally be very weak, but some of the things you just said are definitely worth looking at. But I normally find the card to be like super weak.
Yeah,
Do you,
normally I agree with you. I wouldn't put it in a lot of other decks, but I think the synergy is enough to warrant it here.
okay, so that's what I was going to come around to. Like, what part of like there's three aspects to Fountain of Renewal in this particular deck. One, it's a one converted mana cost artifact. Two, it gains you a little bit of life, and then three, we can draw a card, which you mentioned was actually really used to help get a land off the top of your deck. So, out of those three aspects, which one do you think is the most valuable? The fact that it's a one converted mana cost artifact, the fact that you can flip a card off the top of your deck so that you can keep going with Mystic Forge, or the life.
I can't really say that one's more valuable than the other, just that you get all those on one card. I can say that it is maybe one of the weaker cards in the deck, and if we did replace it with something else, that might be one of the cards I'd get rid of.
Hence why I'm trying to put value to the three aspects. If you had to rate them one, two, three, how would you rate them? Because I assume you've
Let's
actually
see.
played the deck.
Um, Probably the low converted mana cost artifact.
Okay.
Drawing the card second and gaining the life third.
Okay. So the life is the lowest aspect. I would have probably put them in the exact same order you just did. Um, okay. So as far as the mana base goes, Hollowed Fountain, Interplanar Beacon, Island. Okay. Because the next thing I'm looking at here is Chromatic Lantern. Like how valuable is Chromatic Lantern in this deck? Because
Well,
it
I
looks
know
like
that
you
one of
don't
the
need.
problems you had with my other deck was not being able to cast everything, and I just wanted to kind of give another piece to make sure we could do that.
Fair. It does. It just looks like the only really card of color in the entire deck is Deafening Clarion. Let me look at the side. I haven't really looked at the sideboard much. Um,
I mean, we do have Teferi, Sahili. I think that's about it as far as colors, but that again is another card that might be replaced.
So are you normally playing this in a best of one scenario or
Yes, the sideboard's not put together for a best of threes. It's just
okay.
to get cards from with Karn.
Right, because I was looking at it and thinking there's just a bunch of cards here that I really can't find a use for. Like, I have tried the Screaming Shield, but it, it's usually just useless.
There was just a couple cards that I had empty spaces for, and I figured, hey, if they were almost out of cards and I really needed to pull that and use it, but I haven't had a need for it.
Right, right. And then I've played a lot of these Karn the Great Creator decks, and um, a lot of people put Screaming Shield in the side of them, in the sideboard. I have yet to run into a scenario where I actually want Screaming Shield. Seems like there's always something better to go get. And
So I
eh,
would have no problem removing that. I actually didn't have a sideboard for this. Karn was one of the recent updates for it, so I actually just threw together a sideboard because he was in the deck.
fair. All right, so it's we're basically looking just best of one deck, and the sideboard just must have artifacts in it because we're not worried about any non artifacts in the sideboard. So um,
Yes.
all right, so as far as the sideboard goes with this deck, I just want to like kind of make sure that the actual answers we need are there, and then not worry about any of the other spots. So if we only have 10 viable cards in the sideboard, then that I don't see a reason with or any wrong with just filling the other spots with a couple cheap artifacts. So all right, so I love Azor's Gateway. Like Azor's Gateway is so much better than a lot of people believe it is. Um, I just I'm looking
I
at
haven't,
Black Blade Reforged, thinking that you're going to pay 7 every time you try to equip this.
well, not on Traxos if we happen to have Traxos out.
You have one Traxos in the deck.
Yes.
Um, so that's why I'm saying you're probably going to be paying 7. But I guess maybe you wouldn't even go get Black Blade Reforged unless you had Thraxos. Would this deck actually be more viable with multiple Thraxos? Like, could Thraxos be
It
worth
may. I
putting more
just happen to
copies in?
have one copy on Arena, so I decided to throw him in.
Okay, so we also have building restrictions on the deck due to if we have copies or not, right?
Yeah, that was also the reason why there's three overseers instead of four. That happened to be what I had at the time, so I put three in one.
Okay.
But for the most part, I think I have access to four copies of everything else. No, that's not true. I don't have more bag of holdings either.
Is there any reason we don't have Psy Master Thopterist in here?
I guess I'm just not as big on him as everybody else is. I know you wanted him in the other deck as well, but
He wins games, sir.
I, I suppose. But I think Sahili performs a lot of the same function he does.
And would you say Sahili's one of the biggest portions of this deck?
I'd say that she can be a major force in the deck.
Okay. Um, so what would you say the primary way to win a game with this deck would be?
And well, usually to overrun the opponent. And see, I like that Sahili does a lot of things that Sai doesn't. She can copy artifacts as well, and Sai, doesn't do anything like that. And from copying our Karnstruck to copying a Mystic Forge, just so we can get another card off the top of the deck, she has a lot of different uses.
Psy draws a card,
He does draw a card if you sacrifice two artifacts. Yes,
which could flip a card off the top of your deck.
yes,
Okay. Um,
sacrifice the two artifacts.
Psy will give you the artifacts. Um, all right. So your primary win con here is make a bunch of artifacts and still overseer, make them bigger, and overrun your opponent that direction.
Yes.
Okay. Um, so then Sahili is the backbone. Sahili and Karn, Scion of Urza, as far as actually getting across the line, right?
Yes, I'd say those two are the biggest ones.
Okay. Then I'm definitely going to put a lot of value on adding Psy to this deck. I get that you don't really like that much, but I kind of like Dovin here. Dovin seems
You
great.
may be right. We may want to drop a couple cards for Psy.
And the only reason I say that is if, like, I'm looking at Saheeli, and it's one of the very few cards in the deck that you actually have four copies of. And the fact that you've put four copies of Saheeli in this deck tells me that you're putting a lot on Saheeli. You think that Saheeli and making Thopters off of casting all of your other spells is an important aspect of the deck, and Sai does virtually the same thing as Saheeli does in this particular deck. Um, because everything in the deck, other than your lands, is historic. Well, Deafening Clarion, I guess, is historic. So you're going to be making a Thopter off of Saheeli and off of Sai. And if the major aspect of Saheeli is to make those Thopters, then why wouldn't we want to run, say, 7 or even 8 copies of Saheeli? Which is, Sai being the extra copies of Saheeli. Maybe even 3 Sai or something like that, because I don't know. Um, hmm.
They
I,
probably both deserve a space.
I definitely think that Sai would assist this deck. Um, so Mystic Forge is not going to allow you to cast any of your 14. Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Never mind. Mystic Forge allow you to cast Karn, Ugin. So we've got 8 cards that it wouldn't allow you to cast. 12 cards in the entire deck, other than lands. Okay. That's not bad.
You do hit pockets sometimes, but usually able to burn through them.
Um, I like Guild Globe. I've played Guild Globe here in the past few.
I've kind of been back and forth with it.
Um, I'm just looking at, like, all right. So now I'm basing like every card off of how much better is this card if there's a Saheeli on the battlefield, right? So because that's the main goal of the deck, is to get a Saheeli onto the battlefield, correct?
Right.
Um,
Also, Ugin makes all the colorless spells too less, so cards like Guild Globe will be free.
okay. Do you have Mox Amber?
I believe I have a copy or two, but I don't have it in the deck.
Yeah, I'm thinking Fountain of Renewal might be better served as Mox Amber. Another thing I'm looking at the deck on, and I'm thinking the deck has little to no removal. Like, I see Meteor Golem in the side. I see Blast Zone in the mana base. Teferi will bounce things.
And then we're relying on um, the Clarion to keep the board clear of small creatures.
Okay, so what do we do about a big creature? I mean, we're going to be playing, like, we're going to be living off of a bunch of 1/1s, and as long as still Overseer survives, we might be able to make those 1/1s larger. Um, so I'm just curious at, like, the plan for
There's a
surviving.
couple options. We can bounce with the Teferis. We can destroy things with Ugin. Um, there's not, an abundance of removal, but I think putting in more removal would take away from our other aspects.
Fair. Um, let's see. How about this mana base? We're trying to have double blue on 3, I assume, which definitely adds more to wanting Psy in the deck, because it would only require single blue on 3 to be able to cast, which again makes Guild Globe look even better, because on turn 3, you could sacrifice the turn 2 Guild Globe that drew you a card to guarantee that you could cast Saheeli on 3, um, which at that point, if you're a Saheeli deck, in my experience, Mox Amber has been overperforming in most Saheeli decks, normally has a 2 or a 3 of copies in the deck, which brings us back to Fountain of Renewal. We were talking about that card earlier, and during our conversation here, I've been trying to look for, if we could replace Fountain of Renewal, what would we replace it with? And honestly, I think Mox Amber probably fits in this spot somewhere, um, but more than likely it's the Chromatic Lantern location. Like playing Saheeli or Sai on 3 and then immediately following up with a Mox Amber that could then produce 1 blue mana, uh, would then allow you to cast, say, Fountain of Renewal or something else. So it's probably the Chromatic Lantern that I would want to change into something like a Mox Amber, which would smooth out the mana quite a bit. Also, it's a free card off the top with a Mystic Forge. It doesn't flip anything, but then Chromatic Lantern doesn't either. So, um, but Mox Amber is not going to give you your color fixing. You're not getting anything off of a Karn, Ugin, or other Karn. Other Karn. We've got so many copies of each Planeswalker in the format right now. Um, Honestly, I would like to see like Chromatic Lantern become something like Mox Embers or something like that, and then maybe Sai in the deck.
Yeah, I might try the lantern change. What do you think would take out for side, the fountains or something else?
I don't want to cut historic spells for Sai, really. The
Well, Sai is a historic spell.
but you're not going to. Rarely you're going to cast a Sai with a Sai on the battlefield. So um, your other historic spells will activate Saheeli, whereas Sai will not. Um, so I'm putting more value on those others.
That's
Sai.
interesting.
Let's. I want to say Sai's got a 4 toughness. Is that correct?
I believe
I'm
so.
looking it up to see how what it's. Yeah, yeah. Sai's a 1/4. Perfect. That fits in with Deafening Clarion really, really well, right? Being able to sweep your board and still have your Sai Master Thopterist around. I know that you have that plan of using like Steel Overseer to outgrow your own Deafening Clarion so that you can sweep under your own artifacts. And I really like that plan. I think Steel Overseer is a very underplayed card in our current format. And I think that it belongs with Sai Master Thopterist. So I would definitely try to like peel back on something for a couple copies of Sai. Probably wouldn't go over 3 copies of Sai, as they would. Sai would literally just be redundant Saheeli copies. Heaven forbid you get them both out at the same time. Um, Teferi's probably too good to drop. Dovin is fairly broken in a deck that can go this wide. Like, it seems like you would be able to hit his -7 really, really quick. So I don't want to peel back on Dovin copies. Um, it's really Karn, the great creator, that I dislike in this deck, but I don't want to say that might be the card to cut, because if you cut that, then you no longer have access to um, you know other cool combos like God Pharaoh's statue or something of that nature. So, hmm. like
I
I
used
like
to be able to go ahead and drop Traxos. I think I was just trying to be cute there and throw them in, so that might be a slot.
Yeah, I have found Thraxos to be very underperforming in the past. Like top decking a late game Thraxos when you have nothing else, and then you top deck a land after that, just feels bad, man. Feels real bad. Um, And we all know that Arena likes to hand us lands when that's the least thing we need.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right. So let's say that we cut Thraxos and we cut the two chromatic lanterns. That's three open spots for Psy Master Thopterist, uh, or
Yeah, so I have two copies of Psy and one Mox on my Arena account, so I've gone ahead and put those in.
would you take out Thraxos and chromatic lantern?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just going through the deck and trying to identify what I think is the weakest cards with this build. Again, you would need to test the deck a little bit more, but theory crafting, right? Like that's kind of what it's all about. I just wanted to to get some of the viewers on stream, kind of talk about the different decks and things like that.
Yeah. I appreciate your thoughts.
Let's see. I really don't see anything else I would be willing to cut. I mean, if you got more copies of Psy, or you say you have one Psy and two Moxes.
The other way around, I have two Psy and one Mox.
Okay, so if you ended up with another Mox, like I wouldn't go over two Moxes in the deck. And that's based off of other Saheeli decks. This deck may actually be able to abuse that particular card more than others. So uh, let's see what chat's got going on. I'm sure chat has said quite a bit here. James Clugston, check chat. Sorry, James.
Yeah,
I
I just
wanted
blocked of it.
I wanted to, yeah, I purposely blocked the view of chat because I wanted to start with, um, a direct conversation with the deck builder and then roll to chat and see what chat had to say about the deck. So let's go back over and see what chat's got going on. Mox Sai Jorah. Okay, so Jorah could be interesting. I I think the deck could probably cast Jorah, and Jorah would allow you to draw cards. I think Jorah would probably be a super good card with Mystic Forge because every time you played a card off the top with Mystic Forge, you would draw then another card into your hand off of Jorah. Um,
One thing I am a little bit worried about is actually running out of cards because I have actually milled myself out a couple times.
Ouch. How do we fix that?
And there's only one way I can think of in these colors. There's an artifact that puts five cards back in. I was looking at it earlier. I can't remember what it's called now. See if I can find it.
You say it's an artifact?
Yes.
Okay. Um, that artifact would definitely make it into the sideboard, and I think we both know that it would take Screaming Shield spot or possibly the extra Guild Globe. So,
Yeah, I was
um,
actually just looking at it earlier because I was having the same problem in a reanimator deck, but I think it probably belongs here more.
okay. Whoever's speaking is really really quiet. You can barely hear him. Okay. Let's fix that. Jank, say something, please.
Can you hear me now? Hello.
Chat, let me know if that's too loud. All right. So, all right, let's go back up and see what else chat was screaming at us about. Um, this deck also really needs something like Prison Realm. Yes, James, I was also saying that the deck needs access to some type of removal, but it seems that he's quite compliant on using Deafening Clarion, which, yeah, I'm okay with that because there's Teferi in the deck, so we can actually block and then finish up with Deafening Clarion to
It
maybe
was
to maybe
the
get some
wand
bigger.
of vertebrae that I was thinking of. Sorry for jumping in.
No, you're good. You're good. Wand of Vertebrae. You don't have that in here, do you?
No, I don't. But it should probably, yeah, at least go on the sideboard, like you're saying.
Okay, so cut Screaming Shield for Wand of Vertebrae, which also brings me around to other removal. Did we just get a new member? Cushy!
New sponsor, it
Welcome,
says.
welcome, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Sorry, it says member on my screen. Um,
So, as far as removal, I'm just not sure what we would cut for other removal. So, if you have any ideas on that, I'm all ears.
I think it would be Sideboard, and I think it would be Transmogrifying Wand.
I hadn't really considered that. That's we could
Transmogrifying
probably do
Wand is going to give you access to be able to hit a lot of the new color hosing creatures. And I know that if I was playing something like the Flash deck, and you happen to get down like a Saheeli or something like that in game one, I seen a Saheeli or a Sai in game one, I thought that I would be looking at a lot of 1/1s. I would probably be bringing in my Shifting Ceratops, which if you bring in Shifting Ceratops against a Teferi slash, go wide small creatures type deck, Shifting Ceratops is just going to run over the top of them and, smack your Planeswalkers, smack you in the face, like whatever the case may be. Shifting Ceratops would be able to kind of get through you there because you're not going to let Teferi bounce it. Um, and in that case, Transmogrifying Wand would be a great hit. Changing someone's Shifting Ceratops into a goat or an ox, my bad, into an ox seems like it would be very, very valuable. Once again, though, Cushy, thank you very much for joining as a member. Major props to you, and thank you very much. I hope you enjoy your emojis so you can have some flair there.
do
Uh,
have one copy of the Transmogrifying Wand. I've put that in, as well as two copies of the Wand of Vertebrae. I think we could take out the Screaming Shield, like you said.
Probably the
I
extra
think
guild globe.
probably do that. I think we could probably lose the Scrabbling Claws, because if anything, we'd want the Grafdigger's Cage.
Yes, Grafdigger's Cage is pretty good at being able to deal with graveyard abilities and things like that. Like the people are not going to be doing any type of flashback jumpstart, Chandra downtick replay things due to Grafdigger's Cage. So you have a lot of options for shutting things down with Grafdigger's Cage. Scrambling Claws is not very bad though, just because of the fact that you can pay one with Scrambling Claws and actually draw a card. So like I don't think I would cut the Scrambling Claws. Hmm.
Maybe Millstone. I just kind of threw that in as well.
Right, like so Guild Globe, Millstone, and Screaming Shield all look um, all look like they could technically come out. What's the purpose of the second God Pharaoh statue?
Just in case I wanted to pull a second one out, just to further hinder my opponent and not being able to play spells.
Okay. Helm of the Host would be what I would like. You're not going to be able to play two God Pharaoh statues at the same time, right? Like they're
I
going to
think
have
that
to
would.
remove the first one.
Yeah, and I just realized that today that it was legendary, and I think Helm probably would be a good addition. I just didn't happen to have a copy on here, so I did. That's why it's not in here.
Well, Helm of the Host with God Pharaoh's statue is a combo. So, like, if you're wanting to make extra copies of God Pharaoh's statue out of your sideboard using the Karn, the Great Creator plan, if you get a God Pharaoh statue out, use Karn to turn it into a creature and put Helm of the Host on it. At that point, you're you are then going to be making multiple copies of God Pharaoh statue that are not legendary, which will then let you lock your opponent out of being able to cast spells.
Yeah, that would be the way to go, and I might just end up burning the wild card to get that.
Yeah, I think you only need one Helm of the Host here. The one card I'm a little bit on the fence about, which actually, if you keep it in the deck, increases the power of Sai Master Thopterist, because you can still like get value out of Saheeli, right? With Immortal Sun, like the static abilities of these planeswalkers still work, and that's really great with Immortal Sun. So the Immortal Sun in the sideboard's not bad, but if you do end up going with the Sai route, I think you're going to get a lot more value out of your Immortal Sun. So because you're going to still be able to get value off of your Saheeli and off of your Sai with the Immortal Sun. So yeah, I definitely think removing one God Pharaoh statue for like maybe a Helm of the Host, um, and then the other little cuts we talked about for some of the other things. Azor's Gateway seems like it would be really good in maybe a control matchup where you're wanting to kind of draw more cards, see more cards, trade more lands in for actual cards, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I
So
haven't really found myself using it yet, but I wanted to put it in there.
that's fair. Just like the third treasure map, like how often are you going to go grab that third treasure map? So. But that's kind of one of the problems that we have with Best of One Karn the Great Creator decks, because Best of One Karn the Great Creator decks, like, you want to just have 15 artifacts in the sideboard. Like, there's just no reason to have a non-artifact in the sideboard um, in a Best of One deck. So I get it. You're going to have cards in the sideboard that we just can't use. So um, okay. Uh, all in all, like, do you have any questions for me about specific cards in your deck or anything else? Because like I'm kind of out of opinions on this one. Like that's
No, I
that's
think we've pretty much gone over everything, and you were, right about pretty much everything. I appreciate your thoughts. You can go ahead and move on to the next deck if you want.
Well, Tier 1 Jank, thank you very much for joining us. For those of you that don't know, Tier 1 Jank's also a streamer. You can right click his name here in chat, whether you're watching the replay on YouTube or you're live with us. You can right click his picture and go to channel and check him out. He plays a lot of arena content, and it's fun to watch. So go check him, and I think Leslie. Leslie plays as well, his wife. So they're a couple of streamers, and they even play some paper magic for you guys from time to time. So
All
good
right, well,
content
thank
over
you.
there. Go check it out. Thanks,
Have
Tier
a good
One
night,
Jank.
everyone.
Thank you, sir. Sir Gary.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, sir. Let me get what other strong decks are in standards now besides Zombieland. Let me answer a couple questions to chat here, then I will get your deck pulled up, and we'll go from there, sir.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so stand by for just one moment, and let me catch up on chat, and I'll be right back. All right, chat. What do we got here? So, let's see. Immortal Sun in the sideboard for a Planeswalker deck. Well, we explained that madness. Immortal Sun's not going to shut down Saheeli's aspect, and if somebody else has something serious going on, your Sai and your Saheeli will get more value than not having an Immortal Sun on the battlefield. Like if they're playing Teferis and they're playing like Vivians or whatever. I think Immortal Sun might be one of those cards you just kind of want to have in the sideboard in case they're stronger than you are. So um, yes, Cushy Darden is now the stream boss. I have actually lowered the stream boss point. So anyone who becomes a member will kill the stream boss. So actually, I've increased the value of becoming a member for stream boss attack damage. All right, so wait until I see what you brought to the table. Damn near the same deck. What other strong decks are in standard now besides Zombieland? Um, Actually, there's a lot of strong decks in standard right now. Feather is still very strong, and it's just Feather had to come up with some extra answers for some of these other decks, and I think Feather still can get across the line. Just because it has the ability against a deck like that needs to get to about turn 5 or 6 before they can really go off. Um, you can easily sweep out of the sideboard with Feather. So yeah, Feather is crazy strong right now. Still my pick for the season. Nothing's actually changed that except for maybe a few cards in the sideboard. I've dropped the ley lines. I'm no longer as worried about cards like Thought Erasure, mainly because of the fact that Season of Growth is so powerful in a feather deck that you can continue to just draw straight through um, your your deck, and you can usually grab more creatures than most control decks can deal with, and each creature is a threat in and of itself. Also, because of Season of Growth, I really like Feather with Legion Warboss and Feather with Krinko. Just because the Season of Growth, as you make those creatures, you're going to get those scries to help choose your top card. The Feather deck that I am specifically talking about is a Naya deck. Due to Season of Growth and Domri's Ambush and things like that. There's a couple different ways that you could build it. I've seen people go on the plan where they build Feather and they have like the Samet Sprint and things like that, where I think Krinko is actually the stronger 3-drop, in the stronger extra 3-drop. We still have Feather, which is Boros colors, but Krinko works really good with the Samet build, sorry, the Samet Sprint build, because you can play Krinko, give it haste, make a bunch of dudes, that sort of thing. If you're going to go the other build without Samet Sprint or any aspect of haste, I think Legion Warboss is the best, because Teferi is still a thing in the format right now, and Warboss is a really good counter to Teferi decks. So 10th District is the all-star of that deck, really. Yes, it is. You're 100% right there, Gary. All right, so let's see if I can pull up Gary's deck here. I know he posted it for us. There we go. Transmogrifying Wand. Alright, so copy. Let's just go over to Aether Hub. We'll do it here in Aether Hub, because I know that's an easy way to pull these up. What? You guys are gonna see me log in. Don't look at all these accounts. You don't need to know. Somebody is pausing, going back and looking at all those accounts right now. Alright, so let's put an extra space right there. And this is a Saheeli, Tezzeret, Psy. Let's go. Historic. What are we in here? Blue, black. Do we have red in the deck? Yeah, Jorah. Alright, so yeah. Historic Grixis. Let's name it that. Alright. So let me get this deck pulled up, and we'll get back over here to Gary and see what he's got to say about the deck. I'll pull up the visual for you guys. Make sure I got. Alright, so perfect. Visual. Alright. So now we can take a look. Alright, let me check chat one more time here and make sure I've got everything. Coffee time! You have emoji powers again. That's awesome. I love it when you guys use the emojis. Means they weren't wasted. Me trying to put little sideboard emblems on everything. Alright, so we talked about Feather. We covered all of that. I think we're clear to move on to this deck, so I'm going to. Alright, Gary, if you can hear me, sir. Alright, we'll detect.
Hey, how's it going?
Alright, what's up, sir?
Hey,
First
how
off,
are
I'm
you?
just saying I love Jorah decks. Like I built a little commander deck around Jorah just because I thought it was fun. I've also played this in a combo deck that's currently in standard that can allow you to infinitely draw out your deck, which is pretty cool. Or you can just infinitely kill someone. So there's an infinite combo with Jorah. There's a couple other little things with Jorah that get quite broken, but I don't think any of those would fit in this deck, so I'm not going to talk about those too much. But good on you for playing Jorah.
Yeah, no, she kind of combos. She's not the main combo, but she helps like get the combo in this deck by comboing with the other pieces.
Fair, fair. So what do we have that would not activate? Lands. That's it. Everything else would activate Jorah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which means everything except
Well,
for
I
Jorah
guess you could
would.
say she's part of the main combo, but I mean, what it is just mass producing artifacts and using Tezzeret's plus ability to kill somebody.
Okay. So it's mainly like a Tezzeret deck, right?
Yeah.
Why don't that get bigger? I really wish you guys could read the cards a little bit more. This is a little.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, Tezzeret, his passive is affinity for creatures and planeswalkers you control have affinity for artifacts. So what you do is you get a Tezzeret down, and then you play Karn, the Great Creator,
For free.
uh, for free, yes, and then you go and get Guardians of Kolios out of your sideboard. Play Guardians of Kolios, bounce Karn the Great Creator, play the Great Creator, go get the other Guardians of Kolios, play Guardians of Kolios, bounce Guardians of Kolios. Hopefully, you have a Sai or a Saheeli out to generate artifacts every time you cast a historic card or
Okay.
whatever. And what you're doing is you're just making mass copies of these artifacts, and then Tezzeret does damage equal to the amount of artifacts you have, and you
So
also gain life.
so once you
It's
play
awesome.
Karn the second time, grab the second Guardians of Koilos. You
Mm-hmm.
then cycle through your Guardians over and over and over to make
Yeah,
infinite Thopters.
or yeah, not well, Softers or Servo tokens, whatever Saheeli or Sai you have out. I mean, I got two Sai and three Saheeli, so it's like a total of five, I guess.
Right. Okay. Tier one jank. This might fit, man. For your brew, I mean, this would allow you to go infinite. So I did not. I was not aware of this little combo. Um, I haven't seen it in other Karn decks. So first off, I'm just going to say like thank you for bringing something else to my attention.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no problem.
yeah, this will warrant me playing around with this build.
Like I mean, it has Mox Ambers and it has Power Stone Shards, so it has slight ramp. So like, I mean, Christmas Land, you may get it like turn 5, but usually it's around like turn 6.
Okay.
You know,
The real key is you need to get the Tezzeret out with 5 artifacts on the battlefield, right?
yeah. Well, the 5 artifacts isn't a problem. I mean,
Yeah, I
I
assume
have
it
so
wouldn't
many
be.
low casting cost artifacts. I even have Mystic Forge, so I can make sure to peel those artifacts off the top. Zephyr and Void is in my sideboard to make sure I can scry early game. Make sure I get that next card I want. Navigator's Compass really helps. Guild Globe really helps. Power Stone Shard, you can also use her with Saheeli, so you can play Power Stone Shard and then copy another one of your artifacts to be Power Stone Shard, and also that duplicates its mana really quick. There's all
Understood.
sorts of little ins and outs of getting the mana that you need to be able to play these large planeswalkers.
All right, so
Tezzeret.
there's a little rule: friends don't let friends play Navigator's Compass. Um, so, so what's your argument for Navigator's Compass again?
It's kind of part of my anti aggro. It gains 3 life, and it
Okay,
also helps fix my mana base.
okay, um, fair. That's
Just in case.
it's still one of those. It's definitely the card that's hitting me as the
Well,
weakest card in the main board.
well, yeah. I mean, the benefit of it's only one mana. I can't play it on turn 1 with a Saphir and Void out and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's just my stall card, I guess. You gain 3 life. If you have any suggestions to put something else there that can help against quick aggro, because that's pretty much what that's there for, is just to stop those quick aggro.
So that life gain is very important for you.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't really have any interaction,
Okay.
so kind of like stalling the opponent out and trying to get my combo is the key. I mean, if I wanted to put any interaction in, I'd probably put in ritual suits, but maybe I don't know what I'd be cutting. So
Fair. Do you plan on playing this deck in best of one scenarios or? Uh,
yeah, I do a lot of kitchen table magic. I build a lot in paper. I actually have this built in paper.
okay.
And my friend comes over and we just kind of like what we call the gauntlet. We build some decks and then we kind of like play best of one matches to kind of just to see how they go throughout the like I have Boros Feather built. Currently working on the Scape Shift deck, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Okay. So I like your mana base. I like the fact that your mana base is not just all over the place with just every colorless mana in the world. Like you're still a colored deck. You still have, all three of your colors. You're actually probably going to hit them. Um, let's see. Your biggest one is trying to hit what? Is it 16? Hold on, chat. I know chat's hitting me up, but I'm doing the one-on-one right now, so I'll come back and read chat in just a moment, guys. Um, I got to look at the. This is gonna be
but yeah,
bad.
like I said, Navigator's Compass is just primarily just a little bit of life gain and an artifact on the table for really cheap that I can get off on turn one because I really don't have any turn one plays, or turn two really, except for Guild Globes. So
So we need 18 sources to hit. So basically, this deck needs 18 blue mana. I'm just kind of looking over the mana
yeah,
base here really quick. All right, sorry about that,
of course,
chat.
man.
We'll jump back
That's
over
why I
here.
put it up here so we can talk about it.
All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You do have 18 blue sources. All right. Um, that that's the only mana requirement or strenuous mana requirement in the entire deck is trying to hit Narset on 3 if you need to. So I don't see Navigator's Compass's ability to give you mana fixing as being
Mm-hmm.
relevant at all, right? Like we just know, like we know due to math that if you have 18 sources, you can normally hit your like you got like a 93% chance at being able to cast Narset on turn 3. So Navigator's Compass is now losing value for me on the mana fixing portion, which means now it only has two aspects that are worth anything, being one converted mana cost and gaining a total of 3 life. Do you see yourself ever getting into some loop or some situation where you have the ability to continuously bounce this? As far as I know, your loop it consists of only continuously bouncing Guardians of Quelos, right?
Right. No, I don't think so. And on I have tested this deck against a few, and Navigator's Compass, the mana base or the mana thing hasn't really come up, but I mean, it has been a reliable source of
Three life.
no, not 3 life, but actually a reliable source of being an artifact for cheap
One
for
can.
anything that I need for Tezzeret. Gets that extra for Karn, everything. So
So I'm actually going to go back to Fountain of Renewal on this one. I think Fountain of Renewal might be a better card than Navigator's Compass in this situation. That doesn't mean I'm
well,
a
yeah, no,
big
no, I
fan
do
of
like the
Fountain.
card draw. I do like the card draw of Fountain, and actually that would be better. I do sometimes have a hard time like finding exactly what I want with this deck. But other than that, I mean, it runs pretty smooth.
Understood. I think that you're going to get 3 life out of your Fountain of Renewals. So it's going to be rare that you don't get at least 3 life out of a Fountain of Renewal. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it would compare to Navigator's Compass in those situations. Um, I mean, an early Fountain of Renewal is going to give you 3 life in most situations, where a late one may not. So there is that. Like you're not going to be able to instantly gain life off a Fountain of Renewal, making it much better in the early game than it's going
Well,
to be as a top deck late.
Well, yeah, I just thought of this actually because, like, actually, you saying that top decking the Navigator's Compass late while having a Mystic Forge out is actually pretty good because it's really easy to get on the battlefield and doesn't require a huge, strenuous thing in my mana, so I can actually keep playing more artifacts off the top with Forge.
That agreed, but I don't see that aspect of it being any better than Fountain, because
No,
Fountain's
fair,
also
fair.
a turn one, so um, I can't put much validity in that line of Navigator being better than Fountain in that situation. The place that I find Navigator being better than Fountain is a late game top deck of a Fountain is only going to give you a redraw. Like if you just play it, tap three, draw another card, whereas Navigator's Compass will give you an instant three life. So, um, like that's the big sacrifice. Like if you think that you're going to need the late game three life, then yes, Fountain would be worse. Whereas if you're just looking for, early, you want to get this out early, or you want to be able to just, have more cheap converted mana cost spells so that you can churn through them later. Um, I think Fountain will fit better. But as far as that goes,
No, I'll definitely try it. I mean, I'll just have to go pick up. I think I have two, so I have to go pick up the playset. But yeah, I mean, I definitely want to try it. That's why I brought it here to talk about it. So.
understood. The next card that I see in the deck that I would say would be, a weak card would then be moving into Guild Globe. But I'm actually fairly fond of Guild Globe. But again, due to your,
That
mana
draws me a
base,
card.
understood, and due to your mana base, card draws and two converted mana cost seems to be the only point to Guild Globe. Like I don't see it being beneficial as mana fixing. So
No, it's literally just card draw. I don't
and
like I
and
said.
that point
I
is
most of the time I don't use any of my artifacts other than Mox Amber to help fix my mana. Well, Power Stone Shard too, just to give me ramp.
right to just give you tons of mana. Right.
Right.
I actually like Power Stone Shard in this build because you do want
Like
to
I
just
said, the
keep churning.
Yeah, Sahili can copy one of your other artifacts too and turn it into Power Stone Shard. So technically, you could have five out on the battlefield if needed.
God. So do you have Mishra's Replicator in the sideboard?
No, I don't believe so.
What's the combo with Power Stone Shard to go infinite?
I can't remember what it was.
Give me just 1 second here. Let me look up Mishra's Replicator.
But yeah, I mean, the main point of the deck is to get as many artifacts into play as possible for Tezzeret.
Understood. And
Then you
I'm
just
having a
have
hard time
you just
pulling
have
out
the
bad
opportunity.
cards in the deck. It looks very well built.
Well,
Uh,
thanks.
um,
It's still a work in progress. I'm not. I mean, I do like Forge, but I just haven't run any instances where I'm like, wow, I really love this card. Like it's so needed. Like I said, I feel like one of the more important ones is Joyra, but
Understood. All right. So chat is saying that Guild Globe should be treasure map.
no, because it takes extra mana, and Guild Globe automatically just draws me a card.
You can have 7 mana on turn 5 with a turn 2 treasure map. Um, or you can have a bunch of artifacts. I, I, I
Uh,
do I do
the
get
art,
I do get where you're coming from though. I get both sides of that argument. Like you want the card instantly, which if you're trying to hit your third land to start getting your size and things like that down, I would rather have
Globe.
Globe versus like versus like a control deck where you've got
I
all
mean,
the time in the world. I'd probably rather have treasure map, but versus a this is going to happen early. I need to combo off or I'm about to die because
right. I need to gather my combo now. Like I don't need to
right.
wait turns to get it because if I draw that card on turn two, then my next turn I actually, instead of scrying, I actually get two cards instead of just one.
Right. Um, T-map helps card selection, and you can draw 3 cards with it over time with a flipped map. Understood. Yeah, madness is pretty set on the on the treasure map. All right, so Mishra is self-replicator. When you cast a historic spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a token that's a copy of Mishra's self-replicator. What was the combo with self-replicator and the combo may have rotated out? It might have been a while.
I
Um,
have no idea.
yeah, there used to be a combo with Power Stone Shard where you could just go infinite by making copies after copies after copies.
Copies of the copies, yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
eventually you're not paying any mana to make the copies, so you're just
Right.
making it.
Eventually, like
Right.
each one makes like 20 mana, and yeah,
Actually, I think Dev did a deck tech about that.
yeah. He did. He did. We played that in the past.
I
Um,
couldn't remember.
I don't think it's Mishra's self-replicator. It might be, but I think it's something else. But anyway, let's see what else
But
chat
yeah, I mean,
has.
there is a few cards in the sideboard. Like I don't know what's really doing there. Like I just kind of threw in Bolts of Citadel just kind of as a meme card. I don't know. I've never used it. I've never actually came into a situation where I needed it.
Right.
Godfrey statue, obvious hate card. I got the transmogrifying wand in there to deal with big creatures and stuff. So I
Um,
mean, it's not bad.
as
It's
far
pretty
as
fun.
I can see, like the weakest card in the main deck is definitely the Navigator's Compass, and I would at least attempt to try it with the other build. Um, like most other Karn decks, you have some cards in the sideboard that are just you're probably never going to pull, like your fourth Navigator's Compass or something of that nature. Personally, I think that fourth Navigator's Compass should probably be Silent Gravestone, or not Silent Gravestone,
I was
Graph
gonna say
Digger's
I had that
Cage.
one. Yeah.
Graph Digger's
Oh, graph
Cage.
figures. Okay, okay.
I like the thematic compass that can buy you a lot of time. Sorcerer's Spyglass is good, and if I was going to have multiple copies of any card in the sideboard other than Guardians of Quelos, it would probably be multiple copies of Sorcerer's Spyglass.
Well,
Um,
that's the whole reason. There's the only reason why Guardians of Koios is multiple copies of, because that's the combo.
yeah, right. That's why I was saying any. If I was going to have 2 copies of any card other than Guardians, it would be Sorcerer's Spyglass. I don't see the extra Mox Amber being relevant.
That's kind of, I don't know. I've actually popped that out of the sideboard a few times to kind of help me just
Just
stabilize
just
and
cast
play
another
stuff.
spell.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it's not like the best, but it's kind of useful just to have on call.
Salvager of Runes. How's that card helped you?
Um, Actually, I need to switch that out because I actually haven't used that one. I'm actually using Graph Digger's Cage. Actually, I'm going
Okay,
through
so
my
you did
I'm going
end
through
up.
my paper deck right now. Yeah,
So you
and
did
that's
end
the
up with
Graph
Graph
Digger.
Digger's Cage
Yeah,
in there.
yeah,
Okay.
so that
Um,
needs to change.
all right. So chat over here is saying, does this deck have enough life gain for Citadel to be good? So I'll let you answer that. Like how has Citadel been?
Like I said, I've never ran into an instance where I use it. It kind of just taken up a slot in the sideboard. Really. If
And
anybody's
fair,
got
you
some
have
better,
extra spots.
if anybody has suggestions for a better slot, then I'm all in ears. Like I said, there's only about 4 artifacts that I've actually pulled out of the sideboard here.
Okay.
Guardians. I've actually pulled out Mox Amber. I've pulled out Immortal Sun, and I think that's it. I think I've used Sorcerer's Spyglass a few times,
Sorcerer
but yeah, no,
Spyglass is a great way to deal with big Teferi.
yeah, and like I said, it's like
So
I never.
James Glugston says, okay, then take it out.
Okay,
Bolus
then
is
put
Citadel.
you got
Yeah,
something else to go in there. Then I'm all ears. I just right now
right,
it's an artifact, so
right. And we all know that the Karn best of one decks only need about 10 cards in the sideboard. So you have about 5 card spots that are just never going to get used. Um, James wants to know what is the deck's removal package.
it
Um,
doesn't have any.
it's
It's
a
kind of a
combo
combo
deck.
deck. It's a
Yeah,
combo deck that just kind of ignores what the other guy's doing and kind of
yeah,
just wants to go off.
yeah. He's playing solitaire. He wants to go off before you can kill him. Um,
If I was to run any type of removal, I think I would be running like maybe two rituals main,
okay.
but that's about it. Just just to clear up those go wide decks because those are the ones that I kind of have a hard time with.
So I want to say that I would rather see Meteor Golem than Bolus's Citadel in the sideboard.
What does Meteor Golem do again?
Destroys a
What's
permanent.
the destroy? Okay, okay, fair enough.
Um, I mean, he comes down and wrecks stuff, man. Uh,
No, yeah, no,
yeah, yeah. It's one of those. Hey, I need to answer that search for Escanta. Hey, I need to answer some other stuff. Like Meteor Golem is definitely a card that would be pullable. You know what I mean? Like you're saying that you some of these cards you just never pull the copy of, and I think that
well, I guess I
Meteor
could use
Golem would be
Bolus's
better.
Citadel as a finisher. I can go get it, and if I have multiple artifacts, I can sacrifice the artifacts to the Bolus's Citadel and deal 10 damage.
Right,
And like,
because you can go infinite, and then the very last time that you go Guardians of Koilos, you actually bounce the Karn again, grab the Bolus's Citadel, play it for free, tap it. Oh man,
sacrifice all my artifacts. Yeah.
right,
So I guess that works. Like I said, I haven't. By that time, I'm usually in winning territory, so I don't really need it.
right. Like you're the
It's an
only time I
overkill.
can see you being in a situation where you would actually want to make that call would be in a situation where you know you're not going to get to untap. Um, like you know that like you made infinite thopters, but you know they're holding the board wrath, right? Like you're just not going to be able to swing in, and you need to kill them some other
Well,
way.
I'm never really swinging with my creatures. I'm just developing artifacts for Tezzeret. Really.
Right. So okay. So I mean you're really not worried about it because you're just going to create 20 artifacts and then tick Tezzeret, right?
Yep. Yep.
So Bolus's Citadel really doesn't have a lot of value. Um, it's probably going to be Meteor Golem then. Um, man, kind of like this deck. Like this is it's definitely a different take, and I'm always excited about combos. Um, I'm trying to think of other cards that might fit into the main board, but in all reality, like I get why you have three copies of Narset. I get why you have, three
Oh,
copies of.
Narset is so good. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
she cuts
exactly.
down so many decks and also helps me find my pieces because all of my pieces are non-creature cards.
Right. I noticed that
Well,
the
except
deck's basically built around three ofs though. Like, is there no card in the deck that you have to see every single game, or do you just have to see most of them?
I think it's kind of an overkill. A lot of them are legendaries, so overplaying them would just be kind of, I don't know, just killing the other one in a
Okay.
sense. Uh, I don't know. With the amount of card draw I have with Joyra and with the copies of Guild Globe and stuff like that, like I get to see a lot of my deck.
All right.
So
I would actually like to play this deck and see how it like the how well it goes off. Um,
it's like I said, I've got about probably about 10, maybe 12 games under it, and I've gone off like at least 6 or 7 times. I want to say 7, 8 times. Like I said, I play in a closed environment though, so it's kind of like a lot of kitchen table stuff.
Narset. Madness says Narset is the card police. She's the nerdy bully in school that ratted you out for taking an extra snack. James Cluxton says, I would be happy to play you versus it. I actually, James, I don't actually know if I have the Tezzerets to play this deck. I haven't played around with Tezzeret very much, so I would might maybe have to see if I had the cards. Um, but this is definitely going on the list of decks that I want to play around with, and if I do play it, I'll play it on stream. So, um, do you have any other questions or anything about it? Like the deck looks pretty well built, and I would just have to see the viability of the combo before I could give much more advice.
Right.
But all
I
in
mean,
all,
it's
sweet looking deck.
yeah. Thanks. Like I said, I brought it here because I do want to kind of fine tune it a little bit. Not everything in it is perfect, but I do like the majority of it.
Again,
It
I
feels
do too.
really well.
Yeah, I actually think it's probably got some viability. Um, don't I have mana traders? I do have mana traders. I can play anything and everything on mana traders, but I'm pretty sure James was talking about um,
Arena.
yeah. Oh, it's the buy a box promo.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. That doesn't mean that I
it's such a nice
yeah,
looking card.
yeah. I bet. Oh, so you've got him.
It's
You've got him in
yeah.
paper.
Oh yeah, I play all my decks
Oh
in
yeah. I
paper.
I bet that his Ethereum shines well.
It's really cool.
All right. I think that's like that's all I've got. Does chat have anything else? James, I'll see if I can put it together, and we may do some like challenges or something later this week. Like I said, I'm going to be changing my content quite a bit. We're going to be playing a lot of tier one
I do
decks, and
want
we're
to
going to be
answer
doing this type of
Magnus's
things.
question if that's okay. He says,
Absolutely.
Why no Cyan Urza? I feel like it's kind of a dead card. It's not really what I'm doing in the deck. I'm not trying to make constructs to win. I'm just trying to make massive amounts of artifacts by playing artifacts, drawing artifacts with Psy and Joyra, and just going over the top with Tezzeret. Like I said, it is a combo deck, so it's kind of ignoring what a lot of the other decks are doing and kind of just doing its own thing. So it's so I mean, it's not built for that Karn. It's not made to have one or two giant constructs. It's just made to have a whole bunch of Thopters or a whole bunch of servos and use Tezzeret's plus ability.
Did you get that, Madness? No, we're not ignoring you. You're just not priority number one right now, Madness. And as far as I can see, you're in queue for the next deck, so you will get your opportunity. This is deck D-Tex time. Um, all right, so anyone else got any questions for the deck builder or anything else here? I'll wait on chat for a minute. Do you have any other questions there, D-Tech?
No, I like what you were saying about Helm of the Host with the last one. I never even thought of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's a
That's
devs combo.
okay. Yeah, so like like mainly I was just going for the Tezzeret. Like I once that card was revealed, I was like, okay, I have to build a deck around this. And the first versions were without Joyra, and I was actually having a lot of problems setting up my combo. And then I stuck Joyra in the deck, and all of a sudden I'm drawing cards like a crazy madman because I'm pretty sure Joyra gets a card draw whenever a Thopter or a Servo is made.
I
To
thought
is
it
that
was on
correct?
cast. No, it's
Oh,
on
is it on
cast.
cast?
It's on
Oh,
cast.
okay, okay.
So
But
remember
still,
that when
though,
you're playing in paper.
yeah, it's still like an insane amount of card draw. Like once you get the Guardians of Kolios out and you're just playing that over and over again, you're literally drawing your whole deck. If you have a Joyer out, you're literally drawing your entire deck. So you actually have to stop playing it because you're going to deck yourself, and then plus Tezzeret. And note, Tezzeret's plus isn't just do damage; it actually heals you and then damage dealt this way too.
Right, but your combo is my favorite kind of combo. You don't pass the turn.
Yeah, no, it's once my combo starts, it's I'm going infinite, and if you want to continue and watch, be my guest, or if you want to leave, also be my.
If you want to
Because no
leave,
matter
good
what,
game, sir.
yeah.
Fair enough. Fair
but,
enough.
no, but like I applaud you if you want to stay and watch the combos. That's fine.
Right. Yeah, James is saying you have to kill her, which is not the case because Tezzeret's going to kill you that turn. My brain's of course rattling around. Of if you're going to draw your entire deck and you have a Tezzeret on the battlefield, you could pay 2 blue mana to be able to cast a Jace. Isn't Jace 2 blue, the new Jace? You could just draw out that. Okay, so
Three
it's
blue.
3 blue, so that's even
Yeah.
harder. Um,
Well, not with cards like Navigator's Compass, which turns your lands into whatever color you want. I'm just
Well,
no, I'm not. That was a poke. I was a joke.
yeah, I got you. I got you. I was actually looking at Guildgate being useful again, um, but then that only creates two different
No,
colors.
I have
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
No, it's all good. No, like it's just a fun little combo deck.
Right.
Nothing
You
tier
have
one.
um yeah, that's fine though. Like there's usually only about 3 or 4 tier 1 decks in a given season anyway, so all other decks aren't tier 1. So I mean, like we're just kind of stuck. Like you're either going to net deck and play those tier 1 decks, or you're just going to say maybe I can build a tier 2 or a tier 1.5 deck. Um,
No, this definitely has some power. I mean, I guess for the people who are asking about the removal and stuff, I guess Ugin is technically removal. It can come in and destroy stuff when I need it, and if I have Tezzeret out, it's the free cast too, so it's free removal at that.
yeah, James is saying he doesn't believe that the Jace does enough, and I agree with him.
Yeah, Jace isn't new.
He's asking about what about the 5 converted mana cost Tezzeret? Have you tried that at all? I can't personally think about what exactly it does.
Is that the one that makes tokens?
I think it's the Thopter, and if you have 3 cards out, you just tick him to draw 2 cards. Or you have
Yeah,
3 artifacts, you get to draw two.
there's no reason to play that card in this deck. I mean, what is it doing for the combo?
Right. What?
It's not
Okay.
achieving combo.
Ugin's good in the combo because he allows you to play most of the deck just for free.
Right, Ugin is fine because he's colorless, so he gets affinity completely, so he's completely free, and then he can come down and blow up a Galta or
And
anything.
then your guild globes off the top with Mystic Forge are free, that sort of
Yep.
thing. Yeah, yeah. So there's a ton of value in Ugin. I can see that. Um, you might want a copy of Jace for self mill protection. That's what I was thinking about tier 1 jank.
No,
That's why we were mentioning it, but you just don't need it. You just uptick
yeah, you just stop
Jace.
playing
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
You just stop playing the Guardian.
Right. You also get to that point where you're like now uptick Tezzeret. So um, yeah, and they're dead anyway. So um, especially if you get like if you get a chance to cast a Saheeli and you have a Sai on the battlefield, it's not
Yeah,
going to take long.
five casts and they're if they're at 20 health, they're dead.
Tier 1 jank, you would have to main deck that Jace to make it valuable if you're looking
Yeah, because you
for
can put
mill.
it in the sideboard. I
Right,
mean, you could do this as a best of three, but it's kind of set up for more of a best of one format.
right. And if I was going to play it as a best of 3 deck, I would take all of the extra cards that are not needed and
That
put.
Karn's not going to grab you.
Right, I would take. I would probably put negate in there just to make sure that you could protect what you've got going on, and make sure that you could
Maybe a
force
sweeper.
right and force through your combo. If you had any extra slots, it would probably be best filled by something like Ritual of Soot or something of that nature. Due to the fact that there's a lot of zombies out there right now,
That
um,
is really good.
yeah, Cry the Carnarium's good, um, but I actually like the Flame Sweep better than Cry right now. There's
Oh,
no
okay, then that's fair.
there's
Can't be
very
countered.
it
Is
can
that the
be.
one you're talking about? Isn't there a sweep that can't be countered? That's a red one that does like 2 damage to.
It can Flame Sweep be countered? Oh, I've got to look that up now.
I thought that was uncounterable. Sorry, I'm really behind on M20 right now.
Um, I don't think I think that this can be countered. Yeah,
Okay,
deals
my
2 damage to
my
each
bad.
creature, except for creatures you control with flying. So your Thopters from Psy wouldn't die. Yeah.
Oh, it actually would. Okay, actually, yeah, that's really good.
James says he thinks you're thinking of Fry. Um, Fry is the one. Yeah,
Probably.
yeah. This does 2 damage to everything except for your Thopters, basically. So you're going to lose your servos and stuff, but you would be left behind. The
But it's really
reason
narrow.
it's also instant speed.
That's the only thing is it's really narrow. So it's literally hate. I mean, I guess it'd be an okay sideboard card then because it's just hate for the
Yeah, we're
scapeshift decks.
right. We're talking about, if you were running this best of three, I think that you would still have to worry about the scape shift decks. Um, I don't see this as being narrow. Like, it does 2 damage to each creature except for creatures you control with flying. It'll destroy their flyers.
Well, I mean, versus like a ritual that'll hit like a steel leaf champion and stuff like that too. That's all. That's what I mean by
Fair.
narrow.
I'd be more worried about like hero, precinct one decks, than I would Steel Leaf Champion decks. Although, actually, no, you're probably more worried about a Steel Leaf Champion deck because you're
Yeah,
never going to be
because
able to
I'm not.
block
I
it,
don't. Yeah, I
and
don't.
it
The
comes
hero
down on
decks aren't
two.
really that bad against me because they're doing the same thing I'm doing. They're building board state, and I'm building board state, and it's literally a race to see who can get their combo off first. Pretty much. Like if I can get my combo off before they can build a board state to overtake me, then I win.
Yeah, James is saying that you could easily hit the Ritual of Soot. Like, you have the black to be able to cast it. So, um, Tier 1 Shank says, so do Zombieland decks warrant Amulet of Safekeeping in the sideboard in general? Not just this deck. Ooh, Amulet of Safekeeping. So you're going to turn 40 zombies into 1/1s. You still got to have 21 blockers. Is that right? Is Amulet of Safekeeping minus
Like I
one?
said, yeah, I don't know, but I feel like we're getting a little bit off of like what the deck's actually trying to do. Like I get
Yeah, a lot of people are just trying to come up with like sideboard cards and things like that, and I agree that maybe there's some warrant there for them, but I um, I actually think
so
we've
I'm
already
not really
said
trying to
everything we
attack with
can.
my creatures, but I can,
Right.
given the circumstance.
Um, I I think we've pretty much said everything that we can about the deck. As far as the main board goes, there's not a lot of changes I would like to make because I get the fact that you're on a combo and you don't need the regular Karn, Scion of Urza. You don't need some of those strategies. If you were going to be a best of three deck, your sideboard would change a lot. Karn, Scion of Urza would probably fit in there because it would give you that other strategy of, hey, I'm going to go
Wide.
creatures and beat you, right? Yeah. Well, and with Karn, I would probably down tick him instantly, and I'm not trying to go wide, but Karn would give me the ability to go tall. Um,
Well, yeah, but you'd be going wide with your tokens, and then you'd be making that one construct. So I guess
very
tall
fair.
and
Yeah,
wide.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You get to go by. You get to go all the way around, right? Uh, beat a big kid on the block. Um, yeah, like you can make some changes to this deck if you wanted to take it to best of three, but if you're best of one, kitchen tabling this, I kind of like everything you got going on here, man. I hope that something that was said gives you um,
Yeah, I'm
some
definitely gonna try
some
those Fountain
ideas.
of Renewals, and then the next time I play it, I'm definitely just gonna stick them in, just see how they do. There's no reason not to, just to try it. So
Right, I think it's a common, so like, or an uncommon. So
it's
you
an
like,
uncommon. Yeah,
yeah. So you're looking at what, 10 cents a card or 50
yeah.
cents a card or
I'm
something.
not worried about it. Yeah.
Right. Like if you own three Tezzeret's Masters of the Bridge, then $2 for a playset of
Right.
yeah, of some uncommons ain't gonna kill you. So yeah, I would definitely give it a shot. How do you feel about the three Mox Ambers? I've seen very few decks that want to play three.
Well, the thing that I actually end up doing a lot with the Mox Ambers is actually playing them on top of each other to get ramp kind of mana.
Okay, so play
I
it,
know
tap
that's
it, play another, tap it, play another.
yeah, yep,
Fair.
yep, pretty much. That's also why it's in the sideboard because literally you just have instant access to an extra
One,
mana
one more
for
mana.
nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, it all looks great, and I am
Yeah,
probably
don't
going
be
to try to
if
pull it
ever
up.
playing this deck. Don't never be afraid to play Mox Amber on top of Mox Amber on top of Mox Amber to get what you want.
Right. Fair.
And it's also a really good card to play for free that Healy can copy to Power Stone Shard. I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Good old honey boo or June boo boo. Uh, Is what it
Yeah.
is.
Well, thanks for having me on tonight, sir.
Oh, well, thank you for showing up for our first episode of Coffee Time in an extremely long time. So, um, I'm going to go ahead and ask chat one more time. Do they got anything for this deck? They got anything for the deck builder? And if not, we're going to move on to madness. I talked someone into playing Fountain. Am I trying to crack the multiverse? Well, look, man, we're just sticking true to the friends don't let friends play Navigator's Compass, all right?
That's
Uh,
fair. Like I
um,
said, there's no harm in trying something like that. You
no,
know,
no, no.
it's literally not even breaking the combo in any way. So,
Right.
I
If
mean, like
anything, maybe we're giving you a little bit more flexibility in different matchups by allowing you to
right.
draw a card off of it.
Well, like I said, the main reason it's there is just it's a low converted mana cost artifact that can be just reliable to get out there.
Right, and I think that Fountain also fits that criteria. The
Yeah, and yeah, I see no argument with that. I mean, it
right.
sounds legit.
Well, we made the argument of late game, but other than that, yeah, I yeah, give it a shot. Let us know how you liked it. If it was good, bad, if indifferent.
Right.
Um,
Well, we should be playing this Friday, so I'll let you know. I'll definitely slot it in.
all right. Maybe I'll even give it a play between now and then. If I do, I'll stream it. So,
All right. Well, thank you for your time tonight, sir. It's
hey,
been great.
thank you for enjoying the content and coming out, sir. So, have a good one.
Take care.
All right. All right, chat. So our next deck here, I think we're going to be talking to Madness, and I assume he wants to talk about his bag of holding deck. I'll. I don't like this. Send it back. Of course, that's the name of your deck, Madness. At Gary Miller there to get his attention. So live stream down. What? Not again? It is not. It is not down. All right. Without further ado, Sir Madness, can you hear me? You are still muted. Hello. Do you have a microphone? Madness. Madness. He's in the channel chat. He's just not saying anything. What? What is this? Alexander. Oh, the Patreons are starting to come through. Thank you very much for all of my patrons. If you are in if you're in the channel, we might be starting to see a bunch of notifications, and that just happens once a month. So other than that, though, thank you very much for your patronage. You're wonderful. I hope you like the content, and I hope everyone actually likes this new content. It's fun. I like
Hello?
being able to talk to you guys. Thank you, Madness. I'm trying to kill Dead Space. Where you been?
Sorry, I forgot that I put a push to talk shortcut on my mic for some stupid reason. So I'm sitting here trying to talk, wondering what's going on, why I can't talk, and I'm sitting here realizing, oh wait, I have to push A to talk.
Understood. I actually started this stream out with my push to talk still on. So, um, all right. So tell us a little bit about your bag of hold. I assume you want to talk about the bag of holding deck. It got the most votes.
Sure thing, give me just a second here. I have to mute stream and turn off my push to talk real quick. Sorry.
Settings, voice chat, push to talk, escape. We'll wait. We'll wait, chat. Meanwhile, I'll check out and see what chat's got going on. Um, I actually
Okay,
think that was
can you
a.
hear me now?
I think that was a new patron. So patron, thank you very much. I need the event list. I don't know who just supported me, and I want to say thank you to them, but I missed the name. So thank you very much.
By the
Hope.
way, I do have an MTG Goldfish link to the deck if you want to change over to that, because I know you don't like TCG player that much.
Well, TCG player just doesn't allow me to show the deck to people. Um, but the visual here on Aether Hub seems to be pretty decent. So I'm just going to pull the deck up on Aether Hub if you don't mind.
That's fine. Whatever's better for you.
I just want to give the visual to everyone. So you name. I don't like it. Send it back. All right.
Yeah, say what you want about my ego. I do have a sense of humor.
Well, good because chat said, "Holy hell, he has a voice."
Thank you. I've had many and old women tell me they enjoy my voice on the drive-through speaker.
On the drive-through speaker. Well, that's right, Taco Bell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't eaten at Taco Bell in a long time, and I'm not sad about it.
No, it's funny. I get that a lot, actually.
Yeah, it's not real food.
Yeah, you say that,
Of
but
course, McDonald's isn't either, and I still sigh every time I'm sitting in a McDonald's drive-through or a Taco Bell drive-through, going, "What am I doing?" And then I'll be
that's
disappointed afterwards. But it's that consistency, you know. It's always just as shitty as it was last time. James Cluxton says, "I have never eaten a Taco Bell." There's an A in taco. Um, no, I don't doubt that. Is Taco Bell even in Sydney or New Queensland? You deliver a lot of Taco Bell and McDonald's. Oh my goodness, you must be Uber Eats driver. That's or a equivalent thereof, cornball. I bet you actually do deliver a lot of Taco Bell if you're an Uber Eats driver. All right, so enough of that madness. Tell us a little bit about this. Hey, let's discard this. Let's. Wow, that's pretty.
sure thing. First and foremost, I do want a disclaimer. This is primarily a meme deck. It relies very heavily on bag of holding to work. Otherwise, you're just like tossing your hand in the trash and beating the opponent for the most part. Uh, this originally was going to be Grixis, but then Heartwarming Redemption popped into my head, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's a thing.
Heartwarming redemption. Let's see if I can. Ooh, we might actually be able to make this large enough that we can see it, chat. Maybe chat can read that. Discard all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards plus one. So it's the old Chandra ability. You gain life equal to the number of cards in your hand. That seems broken with Bag of Holding if you plan on ever cashing in Bag of Holding, which I assume this deck is planning to do exactly that. Alright, so the whole deck is built around let's abuse Bag of Holding, right? Like all of these cards that have a negative effect on them because the effect says discard a card, you want to change that into a late game positive effect, right?
Right, and most of our cards here that do discard things also draw us things, so it's not exactly card disadvantage if we're also getting card advantage to kind of negate the card disadvantage.
Okay. Have you played any Bag of Holding on Arena or MTGO?
I have not had the chance to. This was kind of my first brew with it, and I was kind of hoping to eventually build it, but it does look like I won't be able to get the chance by rotation with the way things are going now.
Understood. The main reason I ask is because I want to know how Bag of Holding works when you have multiple copies of Bag of Holding down and you go to discard a card. Do you get to select which Bag of Holding is going to catch a given card? Like, what's the ruling on that? Like, when you discard, do you get to select which one of your replacement effects is going to take it, or because you have multiple replacement effects doing the same thing, the other player actually gets to choose where it goes? Like,
I'm checking that right now on the Gatherer.
because that's going to be relevant. Because if the opponent gets to choose, you okay, now you're going to put that discard under this one and that one under this one. I mean, it's going to be a factor fiction headache for your opponent, but still, if they have one that has nothing but lands under it or something like that, you're never going to be able to like get a lot of value out of that one unless you just want a bunch of lands.
So
Um,
it does say here on thegather.com, sorry to interrupt you, but it does say that if you have multiple bags of holding on the field, you can choose which one will hold the discarded card.
okay, so you get to choose.
Yes, you get to choose.
Okay. Um, all right. So yeah, because you would be so that would be an active player. You're the active player at that point. So I guess yeah. I know it goes along the lines of replacement effects, and we had this thing with um, Kalitas, whatever you want to call it, Kalitas, and flaying tendrils, where if you had a Kalitas and a flaying, and you cast flaying tendrils, since you owned both of the replacement effects, um, your opponent or the active player would then choose which replacement effect was used, and they would choose flaying tendrils so that you didn't get the zombies. Um, but I'm not for sure 100% on the ruling on that, and I would have to go back and look it up. Um, but yeah, so we're just going to assume that that's correct, that you do get to choose, and we'll just kind of go from there. All right, so you get to choose. So you could build these up and have ideal hands built under either one, assuming that everything goes according to plan. All right, so the idea here is we want to play early creatures like Dismissive Pyromancer, Rick's Mighty Reveler, which I actually think is a great card, which is, I assume, why you got four copies of it in the deck. Tormenting, man, Bag of Holding and Tormenting Voice seems broken. I'm glad Cathartic Reunion's gone. Um, Rotting Regisaur seems so good. God. Like, so you're just removing the negative effects of all of these great cards.
Right. Basically, that was the plan from the start. I was originally just gonna do this Rakdos, and then I added the third color later. Uh, but the Rotting Regisaur and the Glanthorn Buccaneer were actually like the cards that inspired me to do this. Like, I wondered what pieces do we have in Standard to make a Bag of Holding deck work? And I looked at those cards, and then I realized, wait a minute, Dismissive Pyromancer is like a lost gem in quite an ironic fashion.
it's
That
been
could probably
dismissed.
go really
It's
well.
been dismissed, right?
Right.
Right. I can see the humor in that. I actually think Dismissive Pyromancer is a decent card. We've actually seen it show up in quite a few different builds, over, since the time it was printed. The card has shown up a few times and even shown up in a few decks that top aided in the early versions of Red when our format had just recently rotated. Before we had all these other great red cards, we seen some Dismissive Pyromancer show up in the early forms of Wizard Red. So it's not a horrible card, not at all. And if you're discarding a card that you're probably going to get the opportunity to get back later for 1 mana, that's pretty good. It's not very aggressive though. But then again, I guess the deck doesn't have to be very aggressive when you're playing turn three. 7/6s. You don't need your turn two to be aggressive, right? Uh,
Right, and like really the whole build, like the big finisher in the deck is Cavalier of Flame, which we've seen already in like elementals and other decks. They've just completely destroyed and demolished entire board states as soon as they got on the field. Legend VD, really great YouTuber. I personally recommend you check him out, Eric. You would love some of his stuff.
I know
He made
Legend.
a. Oh, you know Legend?
Mhm. Well, I don't know him personally, but I
Well,
know of his channel.
right. Well, he actually built a Blood Lotus deck, built around Lotus Field and Blood Sun, and every time he's played Cavalier Flames, it just like destroyed the entire board state.
Um, how does Cavalier of Flames destroy the entire board state in this deck?
Okay, I'm exaggerating a bit, uh,
You need it
but
to die, right? And then when it dies in this deck, what's it going to do?
well, the plan mostly is like to abuse the ETB effect to help put more stuff into my bag of holding, and then when I have my creatures out, like my Riding Registors, my Pyromancers, my Revelers, I'm mostly just trying to swing all out with them after getting a bunch of mana and playing all my like my whole deck with thanks to bag of holding. There are probably better ways to do that. There are probably better ways to go wide with that. But I think
No, I agree with the fire breathing on Cavalier of Flame being valuable. But so I guess I'll take this the same tactic that I took with the other decks. They were a little more straightforward to do this type of devil's advocate assault on. So let's start with Cavalier of Flame. Like Cavalier of Flame has multiple aspects on it. We're not really worried about the tier or the turn five play or five mana, right? Like what's the mana count in this deck?
I believe
Uh,
it should be 24.
yeah, 24 lands. All right, so we've got 24 lands. We're trying to. I'm sorry, I've got to keep doing this chat. I should just. Um, I should just. All right, I should have this where I can play it. So you need 18 red sources to. I need to change these to Cavaliers. Giant Ballard to Cavaliers. I need to redo this chart, but all right. Nope, that's not what we want. All right, so we need 18 red sources to be able to do this. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you're good. Someone has
I've
been listening.
Yes, I've been using that guide every time I build a deck. You know, I always think to myself, even the most jank brew that you could possibly come up with can work if you have the right mana base, and that article has helped me every time.
Right? According to Dr. Frank Clugston, like build your mana bases according to Dr. Frank, and you make your decks so much better. You make your jank decks, your second rate or even tier three decks that much better just by sticking to those fundamentals, right? Like so we're gonna call that chart like fundamentals of deck building from now on. I mean that's just part of it. Like if you can't play a card on the turn that card's meant to be cast, then that card instantly starts getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So I agree. I agree. Like if you just stick to the chart, you don't have many mana based problems. So um,
Right.
James Carr says, turns out casting spells wins games. Right? Actually being able to cast your spells wins a game. Why? Okay, you've got the white mana in just for casting Heartwarming Redemption. All right, I was about to say I see a lot of white down there, and I guess it's only for Heartwarming Redemption. All right, well I will assume that your mana base will cast everything in your deck based off of the chart. So we won't worry about
Right.
mana base right now. Do you have any extra spots in the mana base?
I think if there are any extra spots, it would probably either be in black or in white. Funny enough, actually adding Heartwarming Redemption to the deck didn't hurt the mana base so much, which is why I was able to have so many basics. As you can see, I think I have what is that, 6 basics there.
Right.
Um, so I could probably take out the planes for maybe a Reliquary Tower because your hand, with the plan for this deck, is to get your hand as full as possible. And I know you're not a big fan of Reliquary Tower, but uh, once your bag of holding is gone, and if you don't have another one, you don't want to have to be discarding down to hand size.
Fair. I that I could back a reliquary tower in a situation where it was part of your combo, if you will. But discarding the hand size again, if you did have another bag of holding, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, I guess. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
Man, you just can't get around Bag of Holding and throwing all of your extra lands in the graveyard for Cavalier of Flame. So back to what I was going to try to do earlier. You know, let's see if we can find the weakest cards in this deck and see if there are replacements for them. I think that's one of the best things that we can do to help decks, you know, be better is identify the weak cards, which might not be possible here with this particular piece of jank, but uh, I don't say jank is a bad thing. Like anything that's not tier one is technically jank, and we need jank. Like if you don't have jank, then metas get stale, and nobody wants a stale meta. Like as soon
No,
as metas
I
get stale,
understand.
everybody's like, well, fine, I'm going to go play Dark Souls. Um, I say that for your benefit, but anyway, so Cavalier's got some different abilities on it. So first off, we're going to say the mana constraints of Cavalier not a problem. The mana base can handle it, right? Um,
Right.
oh, Awaken the Erstwhile. That was a card that was mentioned. Um,
Awaken the Erstwhile was actually considered for the original cut of the deck. Um, I really wanted to make it work, but I just couldn't think of anything, any good justification for it. When I wanted to make it originally Rakdos, I was gonna try to put more discard pieces to lessen the value that my opponents could get from it. But right now there are just too many decks like Mono Blue Aggro, Esper Hero, Esper Control is back on the rise again. There are just too many decks that get so much card advantage and refill their hands so quick that Awaken Earswell just helps them more than hurts them. And while it does kind of help us, it does put things into our bag of holding. It also helps our opponent almost as much, if not more so.
Understood. And I actually think that Awaken the Erstwhile would just be trying to take like Heartwarming Redemption spot or something like that. And I actually like Heartwarming Redemption better. Um, I don't really care about the life gain on Heartwarming Redemption, but wheeling your hand is pretty good, especially when you're looking at getting it back. And with the rise of more thought erasure decks, like you just mentioned, you know, the rise of Esper coming back. I've been seeing a lot of blue black control lately. I've been seeing a lot of Grixis control, and we know that as the format develops a little bit more, we will see more control decks because that's kind of what happens. You know, as you know what to expect, you can play the right control cards, and control will get more powerful as the meta develops. So as those decks get more powerful, cards like Bag of Holding become more and more powerful as well. Uh, is the deck too built around Bag of Holding? Could this just be there's a tier 1.5 Rakdos aggro deck that's floating around that is not very far from the current build you have. You know, it's a Rick's Mighty Reveler, you know, that type of thing. Do you actually need the tormenting voices, or could you run more lightning strikes? Do you need four copies of dismissive pyromancer? Could you get more removal in, you know, or you just sticking to the, you know, we're just all in on Bag of Holding plan? Like
I
I'm just curious. Like is there anything you could cut in this deck to get maybe even more removal in the main board?
Well, I think it's entirely possible we could change Tormenting Voice for more Lightning Strikes. That doesn't 100% need to be in the deck. It's just there to kind of extra value. Uh, the deck could work, I think, without Bag of Holding, simply because, like, worst case scenario, you're just discarding your worst card to get a new card to try to find your Cavalier of Flames, or even maybe your Neheb. Uh, it is worked around a lot around that bag of holding, though. With all this discard, there might be a couple things that you would probably have to change to make it a proper Rakdos aggro deck.
Yeah, I think that if we made any changes like towards something away from Bag of Holding, we'd be trying to head in the direction of that Rakdos deck that is known in the meta. Um, okay, so I've been trying to get onto this Cavalier of Flame thing here. Like, is Cavalier of Flame's die ability, does it have any relevance whatsoever? Like,
Normally no. If we have a bag of holding out, its death trigger just isn't gonna do a whole lot. At least that's kind of the hopes, which is not a good. You shouldn't hope that a creature's ability doesn't work. But like if your deck is working, in this case, the bag of holding deck, if it's working the way it's supposed to, then you're not gonna have many, if any, lands in the graveyard for Cavalier or Flame to really finish anything off.
right. So at that point, like that's definitely the weakest ability in this deck on that card, right? The stronger ability being discarding all the cards in your hand and drawing that many cards, and the strongest ability being let's give Rotting Regisaurs haste. Let's get Neheb in there with haste, that sort of thing, right?
Right. And
Okay.
going back to the point about how built around Bag of Holding this is, as much as I love Rotting Regisaur, Tier 1 Jank can testify that I love Rotting Regisaur more than anybody in the chat. If it wasn't built so much around Bag of Holding, we could probably remove Rotting Regisaur from the deck because although he is a big beefy beater and he works in a mono black aggro shell that I have built, uh, actually got a buddy of mine his very first ever top four placement at F&M. It's not necessary. It's more of a downside for the deck without Bag of Holding than it looks.
Okay. Glenhorn Buccaneer looks weak.
Fair enough, fair assessment. But it does it is kind of a surprise finisher in and of itself. A lot of people don't look at that first ability there under haste. Whenever you discard a card, Glanthorn Buccaneer deals one damage to each opponent.
Understood.
With the whole deck.
I,
Sorry.
I was just going to say understood, and when I say weak, I don't mean not deserving of a spot in the deck, but it's one of the very few cards that you actually have four copies of in the deck, and it being one of the weaker cards in the deck, I'm kind of curious why you gave it an entire playset. So I'll let you continue with what you were about to say, and just keeping that thought in mind. Why four and not two or three?
No problem. And the main thing is Glenthorn Buccaneer was actually supposed to be the original finisher option. It's essentially this deck's gutter snipe. It's more of a pet card than anything else. But just the fact that I could discard my entire hand, draw a new hand, discard that hand, and just kill you possibly in one shot with a Glenthorn Buccaneer, which is at least the hope. Uh, that was my main thought process. The only thing that I don't like about Buccaneer is the awkwardness of its second ability. Pay two, discard a card, draw a card. You can only activate that ability if it's attacking, though. So more often than not, if you play it on curve, you're not going to be able to activate that ability when it first comes out. And when you are able to activate that ability, they're probably going to have something with more than four power that just blocks and kills it right away. Otherwise, it's more of a ruiner's wake on a body.
Right. That's kind of what I was getting around to. Like, do you need the the four copies of it? Like, can what I'm really wanting here is a copy of Bedevil, a copy of a little bit more removal, right? Because I think this deck is going to have to fight a fair fight, right? Like you have this non-fair way of you know accenting your hand, making sure that you have more cards in hand, maybe making sure that some of these cards that are normally a weaker card is going to be a stronger card because you plan on taking value from that discard ability. um, Granted, this deck, like Bag of Holding, dies to Leyline of the Void, right? Like you have to actually be able to get that card into the graveyard before you get to exile it with Bag of Holding. And if cards never actually go to the graveyard, like Glenhorn Buccaneer is not going to do any good because like you have to actually discard that card, which it works with Bag of Holding. Like as far as the wording goes, but Leyline of the Void would definitely hurt this deck. Um, I
Right.
yeah, I just don't think that Glenthorn Buccaneer deserves four spots in the deck.
And you're probably right about that, honestly. If we did take out Glinthorn Buccaneer for Bedevil, while I love Bedevil is absolutely an amazing piece of removal, probably the best piece of removal we've had in the last couple years. Aside from, well, maybe Cast Down, but that's very highly debatable.
I,
Uh,
I'd take Doomblade over Cast Down any day.
Yikes.
Right?
uh,
Just replant
my
Doomblade. Come on, Wizards.
yeah, I could actually see it in Throne of Eldraine if they reprinted Doomblade. But anyway, the only problem I have with Glinthorn Buccaneer being replaced by Bedevil would be how conflicting it is with Cavalier Flame in terms of the mana cost. Even I tend to struggle with double color of two different colors on turn three. When it comes to building mana bases, we'd need 18 sources of black for the Bedevil and 18 sources of black or of red in the deck to be able to cast Cavalier of Flame on turn five. Um,
Which doesn't give you much room for white, period.
right. We'd have to completely scrap white, go back to the red black plan that it was originally going to be, and I think that hurts the deck more than it helps it. And even if you go to two colors, it could still uh, be kind of a nuisance because, like, if you do four, yeah, blood crypts, that's the name of it. Dragon Skull Summits, that's eight sources of either, and then you have
Yeah,
uh,
you can't even reliably get to Vraska's contempt mana here. I get what you're saying, and I actually agree with what you're saying. You don't even have to explain it further. Um, Being in three colors, if you want to play Heartwarming Redemption whatsoever, you just don't have the ability to get um, into like you're so deep into red that you don't have the ability to get into double black early.
right. Interestingly enough, the mana base could possibly support Mortify. Uh, I do have one in the sideboard, which I'm assuming we'll get to at a later time. But
Right, we'll get to
we
that in a moment.
right, if we wanted to run a different kind of piece of removal, it wouldn't hit planeswalkers, which I'm assuming is your major concern with that. But it would at least be able to hit enchantments and other creatures. Enchantments, notably such as Leyline of the Void.
I like that. I just want some more removal. I don't really like the deck looks like it's going to have to fight that fair fight. It's not a combo deck like we were looking at earlier. Um, Heartwarming Redemption looks like a card that I don't actually like. Uh, I don't like the fact that if you cast this on turn four, you've done nothing to the board, right? You might have actually hit them for 4 or 5 with a Glenhorn Buccaneer, but you've actually done nothing to the board other than gain some life, which is a stall tactic in and of itself. But so maybe it's a 4 mana fog, but I'm not so set on 3 copies of Heartwarming Redemption. As I'm looking at the deck, I am seeing like the weakest cards in the deck being. First off, I think Glenhorn Buccaneer is weak, but yet strong in the late game, and if your combo's going off. So I think at least 1 or 2 copies of Glenhorn Buccaneer is going to be at the top of the list for weak cards. Not not Glenhorn Buccaneer in and of itself, but the third and fourth copy being the weaker cards in the deck. Followed by that, I would say that Heartwarming Redemption's third copy is the second weakest card in the deck, and then we get to Tormenting Voice or Dismissive Pyromancer. I'm not really set on those. I also don't like 4 copies of Cast Down, and that's just because we don't have a diversity in removal spells with 4 copies of Cast Down. I would love to see something else, right? Like just 1 copy of Moment of Craving or like probably not Disfigure, but something of that nature. Just something that could possibly kill a feather. Um, I don't know.
Or
Maybe Lava Coil.
another another reason to run Moment of Craving over Cast Down. is Adonto Vanguard, with Orzhov Vampires being such a prevalent deck, which I don't think anybody saw coming. A tribal deck being one of the top tier decks. Uh, Adonto Vanguard is a pretty important piece to them, so taking that out early game could be a pretty good idea.
Right, and that's why that was actually the card that made me say Moment of Craving as the first card. Lava Coil is also a thought because Feather is a top deck right now. I don't know if people really agree with that or not, but Feather is a real deck, and if you come up against a Feather deck, you're dead. You have to answer it on the spot, and Cast Down's not going to do it. Lightning
Tier 1
Strike's not
Jank,
going to do it.
Tier 1 Jank actually just had a great idea in chat. You should probably do another stream where you play the fixed versions of these decks, and I would actually enjoy watching that just to see like how your take on these would change.
Um, Maybe you just name tomorrow's content. I don't know. I definitely want to play the last like. So my idea was I was going to start declaring a winner or my pick. Maybe not a winner, but my pick of the subscriber decks, like the one that I like the most, and was just going to give it its own video. Um, so that I could try to encourage people to think about their deck building a little bit more instead of just posting random cards, like we have seen in the past, right? Like some decks are given a little bit more time and consideration than other decks, whereas you know those decks do get the votes. Sometimes the bad decks get the votes and they get played, and they're just horrible, and that helps no one. So I want to try to fix that, and yeah, I guess that if we're going to do these deck doctors, then we'll have to play the decks at some point. So all right, so let's say that we cut a Glinthorn Buccaneer and a Cast Down for 2 Moment of Cravings. How do you feel about those?
I think that could work perfectly fine. You also said Heartwarming Redemption. You don't like the third copy. Just out of curiosity, what would you change that to? Would you put a fourth copy of Neheb or another Lightning Strike in there?
Um, so I haven't played the deck, so I don't know. I don't know exactly where I would want to go with that. Uh, but I find it as a weak card. Like most of the time, you don't want to spend 4 mana on something that's not going to seriously impact the board, right? Um, Although Heartwarming Redemption could seriously impact the game and overall, especially if you plan on getting that entire hand of cards back. Paying 4 mana to draw or to replace itself, because technically the card is going to replace itself, right? Like you're going to discard all your cards plus one. So you have 6 cards in hand, you cast this, you now discard 5 cards, you draw 6. Right, so it's just technically replacing itself and then replacing every other card in your hand. So it's willing your hand, which it's a good effect. Don't get me wrong. Um, and there's been times where I would downtick Chandra and like take this exact ability. If you guys remember the old Chandra, she could do this. Redemption seems like a sideboard piece against red deck wins and aggro. Um, yeah, I'm worried that this deck is so set onto the bag of holding discard plan that we have card spots that are dedicated to that plan that we don't need. Like, could we get enough value out of bag of holding with just writing Regisaurs and tormenting voices and Rick's Mighty Revelers and dismissive pyromancers, and Hebs and Cavaliers and things like that, that we just don't need Heartwarming Redemption. Like I get that there's life gain there, but like how deep into the bag of holding do we need to go?
Right, and to be fair, Bag of Holding, it is technically an engine in and of itself. It does have that second ability to pay 2, tap, draw a card, and discard a card, which will immediately put the card you discarded into the grave, then into the Bag of Holding. So it's quite possible we're a little too all in, but at the same time, uh, I just lost my train of thought. um, uh, Bag of holding is an engine in and of itself, so we may not need as many pieces as we have.
Sounded like you were going to argue the fact, and then halfway through you're like, maybe we don't need all of this discard.
No, I was gonna say like all the way through that we don't probably don't need all this discard, but I completely forgot what my argument was after that. I just completely
Must not have been valid then.
it probably wasn't important.
All right, fair enough. All right, so let's say that we could get rid of a few cards, right? We could cut a heartwarming redemption. We could cut maybe a glint horn or two, right? Let's say that we want to keep some. I'll throw in shade. Um, so let's say that we could peel back on a little bit of all of this discard. What would make this deck stronger in your opinion? And I'm asking you too, chat. What would make this deck stronger if we said now we all of a sudden have four open slots, right? Let's say we cut one glint horn, one heartwarming, and one dismissive pyromancer along with a cast down, a single cast down. What would make this deck stronger by peeling back on some cards? And then if we find something that's strong enough, we might peel back on some other cards. Tier 1 Jank said you can make this deck stronger by putting islands in it. Okay. Um,
Well, I think that goes for just about any deck. You know, islands are the most broken card in all of Magic. Hashtag please ban islands, wizards.
please ban islands. Hashtag ban islands. All right. So Kent Chavez, can anyone explain why modern mono red runs Gruul fetch lands? Yes, to thin the deck.
A to thin the deck and B to throw off the opponent probably. That's usually seems to be the main case with fetch lands. I see a lot of modern decks running fetch lands that can get uh, lands that wouldn't even be in the deck. Like they'd be having the green white fetch land in a blue white deck, which has never made any sense to me. But I think it's mostly a surprise factor because modern does kind of run off like as soon as you know what the opponent's deck is doing, you can easily try to start working to counter that as soon as it happens.
I agree. The second thing would probably be Ancient Grudge. A lot of times there could be one source of green in the deck that's fetchable for like an Ancient Grudge or something. Uh, but
I could probably see that.
yeah, if you like mono red burn and want to know more about that, go check out MTG Nexus. John over at MTG Nexus primary plays modern Izzet Phoenix and modern burn. So if you want to see like all the different variants of burn and find out explanations on those burn, go check out MTG Nexus. He's a small YouTuber and pretty much only plays those two decks. So yeah, check him out. Back
Gary
to this
Miller.
deck. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
You're good. Go ahead.
Uh, Okay, Gary Miller actually asks a pretty good question here. I don't see why you're discarding to bag of holding to go back to your hand. Uh, and that's very good. That's a very good point. Like it does seem kind of counterproductive at first, but really we're just trying to take the discard mechanic and turn it on its head. Instead of having it be a disadvantage, we make it into an advantage by essentially putting all of our stuff in for safekeeping, as if we're playing Skyrim. We just put everything in our inventory for when we need it later. We might not need it right now, but we can easily take advantage of it when we do need it.
Seems good. Well, I play Albion, and anything in your inventory gets looted when you get killed. Like they take everything you own. So I play full loot PvP, and I'm telling you, if you guys haven't played Albion, you gotta check out Albion. If you do download it, use my link. I'll provide it somewhere. Just send me a message. Anyway, yeah, Albion, dude. Jeez, we'll talk about that later. All right, so we've got like maybe four slots that we're we're dead set on we're trying to abuse discard. Is bag important enough to try to fit in board the weatherlight? All right, so tier one jank asked about board the weatherlight a moment ago. Board the weatherlight would only have 7 hits in this deck, right? You've got the 4 bag of holdings and the 3 copies of Naheb. You're not going to be able to actually hit anything else in this deck. Even in the mana base, we don't have historic lands, like we don't have Inventor's Fair or anything like that anymore. So we're not going to be able to go search up any other card. So I just don't think that Board the Weatherlight would have enough hits. So I'm going to say no to Board of Weatherlight. And
I,
go ahead.
I actually just wanted to reverberate that sentiment. I agree with that. Magic the Gathering, as I see it, as I perceive it, tends to be an all-in kind of game. You don't want to go too all-in, but you still have to be all-in enough for things to work. A half-assed tutor isn't gonna do you any good.
Fair. Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, you just and even he's like fair enough. Yeah, 7 hits is just not enough, right? It's just not enough. So half the time you'd be using your card to not replace your card, and you're not adding anything to the battlefield. So yeah. All right. So Gary Miller says maybe you should play Omniscience then. So oh god. Drake Seth, crazy ETB triggers.
Uh,
So he's
if
he's
I
he's
was
mentioning what could make this deck better. Crazy ETB triggers, Drake Youssef, things like that. Um,
if I was going to abuse ETB triggers, there's a much better way to do that, and that would be Illahar to the Raise Boar, which actually I only just thought of with Draker Seth. I didn't even think about that when it got spoiled originally. I was thinking Reanimator, but thank you, Gary Miller, for bringing that up because I just thought of a great, possibly Gruul ramp Illahar deck that could
that could
drop
slam
Draker
Drake
Seth.
drop Drake Youssef quick, huh?
Yeah,
Does Ilharg make that creature attack?
it brings it in attacking, but I thought it was like an ETB trigger.
Oh,
Am I wrong?
so Drake Youssef would come in attacking. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
I
sure
think
Drake
I think
Youssef
you're right.
deals his stuff when he declares attack.
Yeah, I believe you're right. So maybe that idea.
You still get a hasty 7/7
Fair. Yeah, you do still get a
flying,
hasty 7/7,
but then again, in that case, I'd probably just rather throw down Galta.
or even Palaka Worm. You at least get an ETB trigger off Palaka Worm. And
Right,
and
right.
yeah, Drake Seth, I'm looking at it right now, is on attack. So
So you wouldn't get the triggers. You wouldn't get the.
right.
So you'd be missing out on what? It'll 10 damage, 3, 3, 4. Yeah, yeah.
I
So
think
there's
more than that. Doesn't it have two triggers for the attack?
3, 3, 4.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
10. Math. Um,
And math is for blockers.
right. Math is for blockers. Yeah.
And
All right.
Sorcerous Spyglass is for Majolta.
So I think that if you were going to make any changes to this deck, and this deck is a little bit harder to work on than most because it's so far in that realm of hey, we're all in on discards and doing that a lot of these cards make me go, hey, just scrap half of this and just play the Rakdos deck that is known in the format. But that's kind of hard to do without just telling you, don't play this, right? I
Right.
and I think even you wouldn't take this to like a major, a GP or something like that. But as far as just having fun with it and seeing if we can make a jank deck work, I think you might be too all in. Like I just think that you're too all in on the bag of holding, and therefore you're running some weaker cards in situations where you don't have bag of holding. Um, that scares me a little bit, right? Like
Right.
Rotting Regisaur can be good, it can be bad. It can be chump blocked all day long by 1/1s that are produced off of heroes. Uh, I mean, there's things that are bad about these cards, and I get that bag of holding makes all of those things better. Um, and that's kind of the idea of the deck. But I think that if I peeled anything out of this deck, I'd peel those cards that I just mentioned, and I would go with more removal. I would probably put that main board Mortify. I'd probably put 2 copies of Moment of Craving in the deck, and then maybe a third Lightning Strike, or um, possibly even a Lava Coil in the deck somewhere. Um,
Right, and I think as I said at the start of this, it's primarily a meme deck. Bag of Holding itself is a meme inside of a meme, which is even more of a meme. That's like it's just a never-ending
it's a
breaking
memeception,
walls. Yeah, exactly. It's a never-ending paradox of memes. um,
right?
I think if you wanted to make a Bag of Holding deck that could hold up to maybe at least an F and M, this probably is okay, but I think a better version would probably be Grixis, because Grixis, you get access to Chart of Course, you get access to a whole bunch of other like discard effects, like you even get access to Nicol Bolas, which could just be a good finisher that if you need it to be. And
Right.
as for those 4 slots that you mentioned, I agree. I would probably put in maybe 2 Moment of Craving. The other 2 cards, I'm not entirely sure what I would do with.
I think
Probably just more Lightning Strike.
I think a Mortify, or possibly 2 Mortifies, or more Lightning Strikes. Um, I think that if you're going to reduce one of the white cards in the deck, that you could easily replace that particular white card with a Mortify, and would probably be all right. Um, I know you don't have a ton of white mana in the deck, but the deck definitely looks like it has enough white mana to be able to support a mainboard Mortify. Um, let's see. Anything else? That's most of my mainboard advice. As far as the sideboard goes, I got no argument with duress. Like 4 copies of duress has its moments. I got no argument there. Against certain decks, planeswalker decks like that, you're going to just go ham with your duress. I like it. Fry makes Teferi quiver in his boots. So Fry is great. Lava Coil needs to be in the sideboard. Okay. Um, like Lava Coil could be the card we're looking for. Maybe we just want Moment of Craving and Lava Coil in the deck, right? Like that could be a thing. Um, Deafening Clarion fits the deck. There's no problems there. You are 100% going to need some type of sweeper, because people make 40 zombies at a time now. Like
Right.
that's a thing. That's a thing. um, I like Tybalt. You're definitely going to come up with, like, your sideboard looks fairly well constructed. I don't necessarily like 4 copies of Fry. Um, so let's say 2 Moment of Craving, 2 Lava Coils in the main board in those 4 spots that we were talking about. If you ended up with a 5th spot, I would add that Mortify as the 5th card. In the sideboard, I'd probably cut 1 Fry for either a second Mortify or another Deafening Clarion. Like, when it comes to Deafening Clarion in the matchups where you want it, you're really, really going to want it. Like, you're not going to want to wait around. You're not going to want to hope that you can get to it. You're going to want your board sweepers in the games you bring them in. You need them. You need them bad. So I like 3 copies of my sweepers in the sideboard. That doesn't mean that those 3 copies have to be the same sweeper. You could have 1 Deafening Clarion, 1 Cry of the Carnarium, and 1 Flame Sweep for all I care. They would all do most of the same things. And if you are trying to stay away from the double black, Tier 1 Jank just mentioned Flame Sweep would fit it, or a third copy of Deafening Clarion. Deafening Clarion giving you lifelink on some of these other cards that are going to be huge hitters, like Neheb and Cavalier of Flame, could be a real thing. So I like Deafening Clarion in this one. So probably the third Deafening Clarion. Um, I think Tybalt's got its place. I don't think there's anything wrong with Tybalt here. There's a lot of life gain decks out there, and Tybalt will shut them down. The problem with that is that most of those lifelink decks have flyers, and I don't see this deck having many ways to deal with flyers other than, cast down, and some of those flyers are named Lyra. So,
Yeah, Lyra tends to be the bane of my existence every time I build any kind of deck that has red in it. Uh, she's just really, really good, really hard to deal with,
yeah,
and she seems to have fallen on the wayside, which I think is kind of a big no-no. You should not discount the Lyra,
well,
even as she rotates.
there's a Sephra floating around now that is as dangerous as Lyra. Um, can be cast very, very early. My wife has a version of the deck that she casted on turn three, and I mean, casting Sephra on turn three. Eeh.
I think it could be actually arguable that Safara, because it comes down earlier and because it's a bigger body, could be a bigger threat than Lyra is in and of itself. Because not only is it a 7/7 with flying and lifelink, it also gives all your other flyers indestructible. So it just turns every flyer they have into an infinite blocker.
Right. Which is again, cast down ain't gonna do the job. Like, cast down ain't gonna do the job, and you ain't gonna fry it either. So,
Not unless you damage it first, but even then, good luck with that.
right. So we've got to be able to answer those things if we plan on having any hope in the format. So, Lava Coil doesn't help with that. Mortify, however, will get the job done. So, those are all some food for thought, and that's basically my opinions on the deck. Madness. I'll leave it to chat to mention anything else, but as far as I can see, that's identifying the weakest of the cards in this particular strategy. Not to say much for the whole strategy. We know it's a meme inside a meme inside a meme, so it is what it is. But identifying the weakest cards in the meme would be the ones that we mention, and I think that we could increase the validity of the deck by increasing its chances at beating some of the other known decks. And to do that, I think you need to be able to deal with flyers, and I think Heartwarming Redemption doesn't do enough. So, um,
Two last things I just want to bring up.
sure.
We kind of brushed over Angrath there at the end. Does he not warrant any mention, or is he just self-explanatory?
Sangrath, man. I take your Adonto Vanguard, I hit you with it, I sack it. Moving on. No, it's Angrath. I have no arguments. None.
All right, and the second thing I wanted to mention was Neheb. We kind of brushed over him a little bit too. He only got mentioned in passing a time or two there. What was your opinion on Neheb?
One of the better decks I've ever seen people try to put Neheb in. I've wanted to see Neheb played in a lot of things. In my testing, Neheb is broken in certain scenarios. This deck seems to put those scenarios together better than most. So I have very little argument with Neheb. The fact that you only have 3 copies of Neheb makes me happy. You didn't overdo it, but you even seen that this is the Neheb deck. If there was going to be a Neheb deck, this is it. So yeah, yeah, I think that the whole deck is based around abusing Neheb, abusing Bag of Holding, and both of those cards just belong to each other. So
Yeah, it's
I
like a match made in heaven.
right. My point was not to try to point out the strongest cards in the deck, but to try to play devil's advocate for you guys and identify weaker cards so that we could strengthen the deck. Um, Not necessarily highlight or showcase the already strengths of the deck. So, just like Angrath, no argument with Neheb, and I see the proper number, so no argument.
Fair
Um,
enough.
yeah,
Neheb was almost a card called Rowdy Crew, which kudos to you if you actually remember what that card is or what it does. But it was almost a Rowdy Crew just simply because I happened to own 3 copies and I thought about maybe possibly building the deck in paper. Rowdy Crew, for those who don't know what it does, it's 4 mana, 3/3 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, uh, I think you draw 3 cards and then discard 2, and if those 2 cards you discarded shared a card type, it gets 2 +1/+1 counters.
Jeez. Yeah, I now remember that. I I think Neheb's stronger, mainly because like this deck doesn't care to discard most of its hand or all of its hand in order to get more red, and then you get to like use all that red to have a to play two or three other cards, or even use that red to to pop the bag of holding. Right? If you discard 4 cards, you can then pop the bag of holding. So
Right, and you can
yeah,
immediately get those cards back with it.
right. So yeah, no argument there. Like someone mentioned earlier, how are you going to be able to pop the bag of holding and then be able to play other cards in your hand? It's easy. You swing with the head, discard everything in your hand, draw all of those cards back, make all of that mana. You still have your mana from that turn. You redraw everything off of the bag of holding, and then start casting second main phase. So yeah, like Neheb is self-explanatory. I wouldn't play a fourth one, but I wouldn't cut to two.
Fair enough, and I didn't want to derail the point of the stream. I just was
No, no, no,
curious.
no, no. You weren't derailing it, and I probably should have mentioned that I favored Neheb in this deck anyway. But yeah, all right. That's anything else? Like, you have any other questions or thoughts or anything else? I'll let you go back to the drawing board. I am still a big believer in you can have all of the advice in the world, but you're still responsible for the cards that you put in your deck. Nobody can tell you what to put in your 75. So, I mean, everybody can tell you, but nobody can force you to play cards you don't want to play with. So if you like the advice, then like the advice. If you don't like the advice, then that's your prerogative. So and I don't mean that directly towards you, Madness. I mean that to everyone in general. I've never handed a deck to a friend and my friend look at me, look at the 75 and go perfect, and hand it back. Never.
Right, I think it would kind of defeat the point of the diversity in the game that the deck building allows if everybody agreed with everybody else's choices on every exact card. That's kind of the point of brewing your own deck. That's the whole purpose of it.
All right. Um. So yeah. Anything else? You draw 3, discard randomly. What? Yeah, Neheb and bag are awesome. Just need to find the right things to put in your bag. Everything. You put everything in the bag. It's a bag of holding.
I think Bag of Holding would be much better if it exiled face down, or like didn't have it enter the graveyard at all to make it sort of like more of a surprise gotcha type of card.
Oh, so they get yeah. Okay, so they get to see all the cards. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because they all enter the graveyard anyway, right? So
Right.
if it did that, then Glenhorn Buccaneer couldn't be in the deck. Period. Because if it instantly exiled the cards, then it would be a replacement effect for going into the graveyard, and you would not actually be discarding cards.
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
Didn't
uh,
actually think of it.
so due to the wording, you're allowed to actually play Glenhorn. Yeah. Um, anything else? Anything else? Oh, you discard randomly with Rowdy Crew. Yeah, no thanks on that one.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason Rowdy Crew just doesn't see play.
Gotcha. Um, all right. Madness, thank you for joining us. Tier 1 Jank, thank you for joining us. Gary, thank you as well. Everyone else that you watch this content, if you are still watching the content, you made it this far. Thank you very much for joining us. This will probably continue. I'm going to see how it goes. I actually enjoy this, so hopefully you do too. Um, anything else, Madness?
No, thank you for having me. I've been wanting to do this for quite a while.
Okay. Well, I think this is going to come back. Like we used to do coffee time in the past. Um, it did get a little stale because we had the exact same people on every week, and I tried to change it up, but it did get a little stale. For those of you wanting to know, I also plan on doing individual like um, devil's advocate on a deck or deck doctors, whatever it is you want to call this. I plan on doing that for Patreons or for patrons or donations. Like if you guys want to get in on this and like have this other than the three decks that show up in a given week. Like if you want to guarantee you a spot in this type of content, I am going to be doing that. So if you guys want to get in on that, you can. But other than that, this was a ton of fun. I appreciate you guys explaining your decks, explaining your combos, talking about why this card's there and why this card's not, and the different arguments for these cards. And it gives us a lot of insight rather than just grabbing 75 cards you have never played with before, going, what is this? Let's go play it, and then butchering the deck without having any you know you know content behind it. So I I just want to thank all of you for participating. So that's all I've got for tonight. I thank you all. I had fun. I hope you had fun. See you next time.